Councillor Gearan. Councillor Hannafy. Councillor Haughey. Apologies, Councillor Healy. Councillor Hopkins. Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Johnston. Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kitt. Councillor Leddy. Councillor Maguire. Councillor McCamley. Councillor McDonough. Councillor Mulligan. Councillor Mulville. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Newman. Councillor O'Brien. Councillor O'Leary.
Here.
Apologies, Councillor Onumera. Councillor Quinlan. Councillor Quinn. Apologies, Councillor Redwood. Councillor Ryan. Councillor Sheehan. Councillor Shovlin. Councillor Smith. Councillor Tormey. Councillor Troy. Councillor Walsh.
Okay. All right, and then we have apologies from Councillor J.K. Onumera, Councillor David Healy and Councillor Redwood. Right, I'll go into... So, County Council meeting Monday, 9th March 2026. All mobile phones should be on silent or switched off for the duration of the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being webcast. All members, please remember to switch off your microphone when you finish speaking. All members are reminded that the Chamber's non-smoking vaping area. Standing orders will apply to all aspects of the meeting. Councillors are reminded of the provision Standing Order 92 that all members are bound to act in accordance with the ethics framework and code of conduct for local authority members, to cooperate with the orderly conduct of meetings, the direction of the Mayor in manner that is respectful of colleagues. Members have been circulated with the agenda for today's meeting. Any member forming the view that they have a conflict of interest in the matter subject to today's agenda should now disclose same. Councillors are also reminded of the provisions of Standing Order number 93 that members must bear in mind that discussions at council meetings are not privileged. No member may make false statements, impute improper motives or use offensive or unbecoming words in reference to any member of the council, employee of the council or any other person. Any member having made such statements or used such objectionable words, not explaining or retracting same or offering apologies for the use thereof when requested by the Mayor to do so shall be called upon by the Mayor to withdraw from the meeting. Members making any such statements or comments may find themselves personally liable for them. Okay, I have no emergency motions. I'd like to note that the Chief Executive is away on council business, as is Paul Carroll. Mary Egan is taking her place here. And I'd also like to note at the head of the meeting that this is Mary T. Daly's last meeting with us after 40 years sterling service. And a lot of goodwill there for Mary, and I've got to know her over the last couple of years, and I have to say, just very bluntly, she's great crack and great fun to deal with. Even if we're in the middle of a bit of a dispute or difference of opinion, she's a great way of going about it. She has a great way of dealing with people out there in the public, especially when there's a bit of angst and a bit of friction and a bit of, tough things to do. She has great communication skills. She goes out and meets people. She tells them as it is, and they accept it, which is, that's not an easy skill to have. Anyway, not all the time, but anyway, some of the time. So I just want to wish Mary the best in her retirement. I certainly will miss her around the table here and day-to-day briefings that we have and the problems we deal with. And she is a sterling public servant, and I just want to mark her retirement. And if anyone else would like to say a few words, you're welcome to do so now. Right, Councillor Joan Hopkins. Which one? Councillor Owen Ryan. Sorry, Owen.
No problem. Thanks, Mayor. Just very briefly, just to say thanks to Ms Daly for all the work and engagement over the years. I did mention at the area meeting that she was, no disrespect to other directors, but one of the most accessible to the area meeting. Certainly, very hard working, a sterling career behind her. So, just to wish you all the very best and to thank you once again for everything over the years. Mary, good night and bow her lads.
So, Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you. Mary knows what I'm going to say here. If it wasn't for Mary Daly, we wouldn't have all of the public toilets we have in Fingal today. It's not funny, it's very serious. Like 5 years ago when we started asking for them, it was kind of, and we really pushed her and Mary made that happen. So the county thanks you for that, particularly the women and children and older people. And just to say, you are a great crack. We don't always agree on everything, but absolutely brilliant. If you want something done, Mary Daly's the lady. So you'll be a hard act to follow, and best of luck in your retirement. You're too young for it. Yeah,
Councillor Jimmy Gearan.
Two things I'd say. I remember you for more than the WCs, although they were a big achievement. Our first engagement was over a sign on Tormanby Road, and we had an unmerciful exchange on the phone, and the relationship grew from strength to strength. As I said recently, I don't think you will be remembered for your bedside manner, but I do think your achievements just go way and beyond all that you could have done. I don't think we have had a better serving individual amongst us. You stood out. 40 years, I'm surprised to hear you started at 14, but there you go. And I wish you the sincere and all the best in your retirement. It is well deserved, and enjoy. Thanks.
Okay, and Councillor Chair Sheehan.
Yeah, just to say thank you, Mary. As new councillors coming in here, there was never a time that you wouldn't answer the phone or give us some clear direction in what we requested. Not always getting what we wanted, but always giving us the right direction. So we appreciate it and welcome and wish you the very best. Thank you.
And Councillor Joe Newman.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Mary T, I certainly just agree with what's been said so far, and really appreciate your service to the community here, especially in the Swords area. There was never an issue. Anytime we asked you for something, you would consider it. If you could do something about it, if you did, and if you couldn't, you'd tell us in a nice way, But, with regards to the toilets, I put a motion forward some years ago to get $1.5 million for you, like $1 million or whatever, so I gave you a head start on that one. So, you're going to be a hard act to follow, and you've set a standard there, and I hope the person coming into your shoes will take note of how you've done your business and try to continue on in that vein, because it's made our work, the councillors, all that much easier. Thank you.
Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thanks a lot, and sad to see you go, Mary. You don't look very sad, though, I have to say. I think you'd be skipping out here today. Joe must have had a special place in your heart, because I can't say you told me nicely every time that you told me no, but you were always very straight, always very, very good at your job, and we will miss you. Thanks a lot.
Councillor Evie Tormey.
Yeah, likewise, very sad to see you go, as are the Fine Gael group. You're tremendous at your job. We have huge admiration for you, and that actually just goes across Dublin as well, because I know my colleagues in Dunleary Rathdown County Council spoke very, very highly of you as well, and you had a good relationship with them. You came in here and you just transformed things to be so much more efficient, like the programme of works, getting the public toilets delivered, dealing with a number of local issues, and as people said, just go out and just lay down the law and just get things done, and that's what we need here. And so we're very, very sad to see you go, but I wish you all the best in your retirement, and yeah, hopefully a lot more fun ahead. Thanks.
Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks, Mary, so much for everything you've done. I mean, I know I and other members of the Labour group have had a really positive experience working with you over the years. I think operations has really gone from strength to strength under your stewardship. I must have missed something. I must be the only member who hasn't had dealings with you on public toilets, so I missed out on something there. But I do remember, though, that I think one of your last meetings, which was the local safety partnership in Dublin West, you said one of the things you most liked over the years in your many various roles in local government was working with elected members. And I actually thought you were joking initially, and then I realised you were entirely serious, and that was absolutely reflected in your approach to elected members over the years. You're always approachable, open, straightforward, professional, and really want to thank you for that on behalf of the Labour group, and wish you all the very best.
Councillor Dara Butler.
Yeah, no, just want to wish you all the best personally, and from, I know Owen has spoken, and the rest of the Fianna Fáil group. Thanks a million for all your hard work. The older I get, I get very jealous of people retiring. So listen, I thank you for, you're getting loads of people just a few years older than me, and yeah. But anyway, no, listen, I really do appreciate it. All the hard work you've put in, all the years of service. You deserve it, and I really hope you have a brilliant retirement, and I'm sure I'll see you around Swords and hopefully at a few concerts. Thanks, take care.
Okay, Councillor Dean Mulligan.
Thanks. Apologies for being late. Yeah, just thanks for being straight with us. It's very refreshing sometimes when we advocate for people and you understand that we have a job to do and you have a job to do, and it's so refreshing to get a straight answer and cut away the bureaucracy and tell you no when no means no, and tell you, yeah, that's possible, but work with me. And it's a very refreshing approach to get. Especially when we started off here, we aren't experts in everything, but we have to advocate for what we have to advocate for. And there was no ambiguity when we spoke to you, so it was always clear and concise. And given the amount of work operations do and the amount of phone calls you got, and how many times I've texted you while you were away on holidays, which I apologise for, but you always got back and you were always clear and polite and really nice, even when we weren't. So just thanks for everything, and I appreciate it. And forget about us and enjoy your retirement. Thanks so much.
Okay, I think that's everyone. So,
yeah, just to say a few thanks.
I've one more. Yeah, one more comment to make. I can't let the occasion go without referencing the Skerries fisherman who miss you as you're trying to solve that big problem we have down there, and it's a 3 million spend. But at your last meeting here, I'm delighted that you have confirmed that you've signed a contract for a new toilet in Skerries for the kids at the playground. And well done, Mary, and thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Chair, and I'm not going to, and I'm only going to be 2 minutes, I'm not going to mention any toilets or PCs, but I blame Joe Newman for that because he started it, Councillor Newman. So just to say, listen, I do really appreciate I'm very humbled with regards to what you say about me here. I really do appreciate it. When I say the nicest part of my job over the last 20 years has been working with the councillors, going to the council meetings. I fully understand and appreciate where you're coming from. You're representing the people that have elected you, so I have to listen, and I hope that I have done that. Just to say that I have spent my whole career stumbling into things, and I didn't even apply for the job in local government. God rest her soul, my mother above in heaven. She's the one who applied for the job for me as a clerk typist. And I think it was probably to get me out of the house more than anything else and get her up to Dublin, and she could probably go up to Dublin, get a job, and hopefully find a man. And my first job was in the motor taxation office, and my husband came in to tax his car and went out with a life sentence because he met me. So that was the beginning of my career in local government, but I have thoroughly enjoyed every role that I've gone into. I've never planned to go into any role that I've ended up in. I just seem to have stumbled into them, and I've enjoyed every single one of them. I've enjoyed my work in the city. Dunleary County Council, Drogheda Borough Council, Louth County Council, and back here to Fingal. And I have to say, I think there was a lot of luck involved in it, but behind it all, there was an awful lot of hard work. And I did grab the opportunities that were there in order to deliver what I did deliver, and I've delivered a lot over the last 40 years. So I thank you very, very much. I am stumbling into retirement, and hopefully it'll go okay. But I've no doubt I will be meeting a lot of you. I live in this county. I love this county, and I have thoroughly enjoyed working with the management team, with Anne-Marie. She's not here tonight. They're my colleagues. They're the people that have supported me. Liz, Sinead, the girls here in the front, they keep everything going. So I just want to thank absolutely everybody in this room and wish you all good health and happiness.
Okay, thank you everyone. Now we'll move on to the next business. So I'm going to call on Councillor Gerard Sheehan to say a few words about Darren Jack Kelly, who has joined Aintu.
Yeah, just say that we're delighted to welcome Darren Jack to the Aintu team. Darren has already proven himself and shown himself to be a hard worker, principled man, and we hope that he can continue with that. We know well that he can, and just to say that Ellen and I are, of course, delighted. And thank you.
And all the too.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I would just like to wish Councillor Darren Jack Kelly the best of luck. Thank you. Right, we go on now to the formal meeting. So, confirmation, reaffirmation of minutes of County Council meeting held on Monday, the 9th of February 2026. I'll propose by Joe Newman, seconded by Emer Carboni Mangan. And then we're going into item number 2. So nominations 2A, appointment of one member to the Naming and Commemorative Committee. Have any proposals? Yes?
Can I propose Councillor Kieran Dennison, please?
Okay. Don't know if you got that. So proposed by Evie Tormey and seconded by Luke Corkery. And then Councillor John Walsh, yes?
Yeah, I'd like to propose Councillor Mary McCamley, please.
And seconded by Brian McDonough. So proposed by John Walsh, seconded by Brian McDonough. Any more? And by the way, this is for a Dublin 15 councillor. We're looking for nominations for Dublin 15 councillor. Okay, right. So are we going to a vote or any? Yes. Okay. Yes. I think we're going for a vote. We have 2 candidates, so we're going to a vote. Yes? Sorry. Councillor Dennison? Yeah. Councillor Kieran Dennison?
Chair, I allowed my name to go forward because I thought nobody else was interested, but if Councillor McCamley is interested, I'm quite happy to withdraw in her favour.
Okay, so as we've only got one candidate then, yes, sorry, sorry?
To be appointed.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Is it? No, one.
Yeah.
No, it's only one member. One member resigned. It's a replacement member. That's what I've been told here. Okay, so, right. So that means Councillor McCamley is duly elected to the Naming Committee. Thank you, Councillor Dennison. So then we move questions 3 to... What? Oh, sorry, I missed 2B. Sorry, 2B, another one. So 2B, appointment of one member to the Public Realm Transportation Mobility Management Strategic Policy Committee. Have we anyone nomination for that? Looking for someone to go on this SPC. Dean, are you? Need someone to propose and second.
We transferred.
I don't know.
We sent an email to Corporate Services last month.
Has to go to full council, they're telling me here.
Well,
proposed by Councillor Butler, seconded by Councillor Mulville. No other candidates. Councillor Mulligan, Dean Mulligan is now a member of this SPC, the Public Realm Transportation Mobility Management Committee. You okay with that, Dean?
Yeah, I would have loved an email on it, but...
Right, Grant. Okay, so that's done. Okay. So, questions 3 to 18, I think. Hold on. 17. Where are they? There for noting. Is it noting? Yeah, noting. Or propose and second. I propose that someone will second Councillor Humphreys. Right. Okay, move on now to reports of committee. So I'll run through them. So 18A, report of the Organisation, Procedures and Finance Committee, OPNF meeting held on Monday the 9th of February. I propose that someone will second. Anyone? Seconded by Jimmy Gearan. B, report of Balbriggan Rush Lussors Services B Area Committee meeting held on 12th of February. I propose someone will second. Seconded by Mark Boland. C, report of Holt Malahide Services B Area Committee meeting held on Wednesday the 4th of March. Owen O'Brien and seconded by Brian McDonough. D, report of Branchestown Mulhullard Castleknock Ongar Services B Committee held on the 5th of March. Proposed by Ted Leddy, seconded by John Walsh. Financial Matters Annual Report of the Audit Committee 2025 Committee Annual Work Programme 2026. We can note this. I don't know if someone wants to ask questions on it. If not, we can note it. Does anyone want to raise questions on it or ask Mary Egan here to speak to it?
I'd say that this is the annual report of the Audit Committee, produced as required by the Local Government Audit Committee Regulations 2014, and it details the considerations and the findings for the year and a review of the Audit Committee's performance. It also includes the Annual Work Programme 2025.
For noting. So, are we okay to note it? Noted. Yes, grant. Noted. Okay, go on to the disposal of properties, number 20. So the first one is 20A, notice of proposed disposal of land, grant of way leave to at Crowcastle Green, Swords, County Dublin 2, ESB Network, St Margaret's Road, Finglas. Proposed. Anyone want to query the proposed by Owen O'Brien, seconded by preferably someone from Swords, or is it Finglas? Finglas. I'll second it then. Okay. So, number 20B, notice of proposed disposal of land and grant of way leave at North Street, Swords, County Dublin, to ESB Network, St Margaret's Road, Finglas. Proposed by Councillor Gearan, seconded by Joe Newman. C, okay. Agreed. Well, agreed, I hope. Notice of proposed grant of non-exclusive right-of-way at Tomantown, Lusk, County Dublin, to Donald Buttery and Anne-Marie Buttery, Cole Winters, Lusk. I propose, if someone would second, Mark Boland. Agreed? Agreed. No one demurring. D, proposed disposal of fee simple interest of dwellings. There's a list, I presume. There's a list there. I don't know if you've looked at the list. So I'll propose, and if seconded by Councillor Joe Newman, and you have the list in your reports. I hope that's agreed. It's not unusual. Agreed. Okay. And then 21, have we any roads? Declaration of roads? No. And then we're into number 22, part 11 of the Planning Development Act 2000, part 8 of the Local Government Planning Development Regulation 2001 is amended for the proposed construction of 13-unit crisis accommodation with associated staff and support accommodation at 30 Clonard Street, part 110825. This has been through area committee. I'm proposing we agree it, but if you want to speak to it or ask questions on it, proposed by Dean Mulligan, seconded by, who said that? Malachy Quinn. And is that agreed? It's crisis accommodation in Balbriggan. Welcome. Yeah, agreed. Okay, great. Thank you. So then we go into the Fingal Road Safety Plan. Who's taking this? This has been to area committee as well. I understand. All area committees.
Yeah.
So
this is just for noting, members. It's been to the area committees unless any councillor wants presentation on it.
anyone want to raise anything on it? If not, we're going to note it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Note it. Yes.
Yeah.
Note it. Note it. You're all okay with that before I'm checking now, in case you want to. Okay. Right. So number 24, we're going to draft Fingal Local Community Development Committee, LCDC Annual Report 2025. We'll go to...
Again, just for noting, Mayor, this is the report on the activities of the LCDC over the last 12 months.
So we're noting it, but just before I do that, does anyone want to raise any questions or issues or whatever? You'd like to hear the presentation? Is there a presentation? There's no presentation on it. Okay. We can arrange a briefing if you want a briefing. Yeah. Okay, so it's noted, unless I see Brendan Ryan. Brendan, you got your... Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to make a general point about, you know, when things like this come forward to the full council meeting and you get comments like this was dealt with at the area committee and therefore it's just noted and it doesn't go ahead. Well, it goes ahead, but there's no presentation. But there are people watching this council meeting might have an interest in seeing what's happening, and they're being precluded from seeing it. So I'm not in favour of this general, because it happens regularly, and it's just a little bit frustrating that it always happens. If I'm sitting at home and want to see this, I can't see it. So it's unfair to the public.
Okay, that's noted. Sorry. Look, this happens. I've been here a few years. It's with the agreement of the members, and some of these items, like that very welcome emergency accommodation or whatever you call it, crisis accommodation has been through the committees, and we've all seen it. And sometimes, only with the agreement of the members, we move on. And I've made the same point you've made, Brendan, because the councillors in here haven't maybe seen that report, for example. So anyway, it's just so we can get to the motions and get business done. Sometimes we do it. So, Councillor Murphy.
No, I agree with Councillor Ryan to a degree. However, on this particular instance, this is a planning application, so it's open to the public that can actually see it, and there has been some submissions made on it. So I think the public in general are very aware of what's been delivered into the area, and it's very welcome. Thank you.
Anyway, Brendan, your point's noted. You've been heard, and we'll have to look at it case by case as we move on. Yeah. Okay. All right. So where am I now? Am I at Chief Executive's report? Yes. So Chief Executive's report, go to Mary Egan, and then we'll see if you want to raise whatever. So Mary Egan isn't making any comment. The Chief Executive isn't here. So if you've all had a look at the Chief Executive report and you want to raise some issues, now's your time to do it. Or we're noting the Chief Executive's report. Sorry, Brendan. but if somebody we don't present it, it's there or whatever. So anyone want to raise? So Angela Donnelly, yeah, Angela.
Thanks a lot. I'd just like to raise the parking bylaws that were recently approved by this committee area. And there was a big oversight in Dublin 15 in that I don't think there's parking by a train station, Clonsilla train station, and I don't think it was on anyone's radar, the management or the councillors. I think we probably thought it was owned by Eroyd Aaron, but we have gone up to €5 a day, and the car park down the road at the next train station, owned by Eroyd Aaron, is $3.50 a day, and I just think it was. I'm not interested in pointing fingers, whether it was our fault, whether it was the management's fault. I think we should just put up our hands, and I think we should have another. We should look at review the parking bylaws again, because it goes totally against everything that we look for in our development plan in terms of modal shift and trying to get people out of their cars and onto public transport. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor John Burchett.
Yeah, just to support Councillor Donnelly's input there. I mean, it's an increase of up to 600 a year for some people, 5 days a week. And it runs counter to our policy of encouraging active travel, for those that drive to the train station and then take the train into the city centre. So really, we should take another look at that, because it's a massive burden to place on people in a cost of living crisis, and yeah, it's something that needs to be looked at.
Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Just a similar point on Clonsilla train station. I think, listen, we have to say we all missed it. Like in an ideal world, people would be able to walk or get a bus to the train, but Bus Connects has not yet been implemented for Dublin 15. Even if it was, it wouldn't bring major improvements in the local bus services. A lot of people have no alternative but to drive to Clonsilla train station, and that's a very significant once-off increase. Yeah, I think it's something we should just we should try to look at again. It's really not. It's at a time of a cost of living crisis. It's not an additional cost that should be imposed on people. The other thing I'd like to say, actually, I just want to thank. We've thanked Mary already, but just thank the operations department for all the work they've done in Dublin 15 over the last couple of months. I think there's been a very quick start with the programme of works. Particularly in terms of green spaces and roads and footpaths. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Councillor Chair Sheehan.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Councillor Donnelly for raising the issue again. It is something I think that we were blindsided by. We hadn't noticed it, and it is a huge increase. And like the figures that they're talking about there for people who are parking and going into work, again, it's more or less penalising those people trying to get to work. So I'd like that to be reviewed if possible as well. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Patrick Quinlan.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just very quickly, the Chief Executive report talks about 61 allocations for social housing within the month of January up until this date of February. I'm wondering, can we get a breakdown of those allocations based on demography and whether or not they're Irish or non-Irish nationals? As well, then there was 27 households who exited homelessness accommodation, or there was preventions from entering homelessness. One of them was from direct provision. So can that be explained, how someone from direct provision is available of social housing supports? And then just with Ocu Living, I see that they have an €880,000 contract over the next 4 years for Parnell Estate in Mulhuddart. Just wondering what work are they actually going to be engaging in to justify €220,000 a year over the next 4 years?
Okay, Councillor Cahill Boland.
Thank you. If the station was to be reviewed, would that mean that all stations across the county would be reviewed? In terms that, does it open up more than just a single location? It opens up the entire programme of parking charges. I think that if that's the case, I think that we need to be very careful where we're going.
Okay, Councillor Siobhan Shovlin.
Yeah, thanks for the report. I'm going to be quite brief. Just in relation to the Royal Canal Greenway, I had some people in touch with me about work going on last week along the back of Delwood. Has anyone got any information on that? I assume it's in preparation maybe for the planning application. And secondly, and I don't expect an answer now, but if someone could come back to the Castleknock councillors and whoever else is on the Liffey Valley Management Advisory Committee, we've had residents just in touch asking when we plan to meet next. It's been a long time since we have met, and just it'd be important to get things rolling and moving on that. Thanks.
Okay, I think that's everyone for the time being. I just want to ask a general question regarding the parking bylaws. I suppose this is kind of the law of unintended consequences. The train station, where you have two parking rates, one is cheaper than the other. So if we were to consider reviewing, how does that work? And does it, as Cahill Boland said there, maybe open it up to a full review? Or can you only review, we'll call it the all-day parking €5 charge on its own, all across the county? That's my question. Taking the questions. Go to Mary T. Daly.
They're all for me, are they? It's all me, is it? Thanks very much. Just with regards to the bylaws, we did an extensive consultation on the parking bylaws, which involved 2 briefings with the elected members. We went to the area committees before the draft went out. We went to the area committees after the draft comes in. It went to the SPC twice. It was recommended to. We got 533 submissions. €5 on-street parking is very reasonable. There is very little paid parking in the Clonsilla area. If you go down to the train station down at Luttrellstown, Castleknock, it's more than 3. I think it's 3. Angela, you said 340 there. I think it's 4 something down at 360, yeah. And it's 4 something down at the other train station. So that is, it's €5 on-street parking, and we cannot change that. The bylaws have been adopted in their entirety. You cannot change a bylaw. You can change, amend, or create new bylaws in accordance with the legislation, and that means you have to go back and you have to start the whole process again. So it's a full consultation. If you can very much appreciate if people have given a submission into the bylaws, and all those submissions are taken into consideration, and then the bylaws are adopted by the council. They're adopted in full. There's not parts of them adopted, they're adopted in full. And then you decide to change a bylaw, then that would be very unfair to the public. You have to go back out. So the legislation clearly outlines if you're amending a bylaw, you have to start the public consultation again. So until such time as that takes place and a full review is done of the bylaws, which I would hope we wouldn't be doing. A lot of work went in, a full year of work went into those bylaws. Then those are the charges that have been adopted and approved by the elected members. With regards to the Royal Canal Greenway, Councillor Shovlin, I'm not aware of any works there, but Matthew, my colleague, might have some idea on that. I think that's it for me, was it? That's all on the bylaws.
I'll come back to Angela, but I want to go to the other questions. What other questions have we got? Housing and I don't know what else. Yeah, Aoife, is it?
In relation to the breakdown of the allocations by nationality, we don't track it that way, as it's not a criteria for eligibility for social housing support. The allocation from direct provision, I don't have that information with me today, but we will respond to you in writing with that going forward. And regarding the appointment of ACU, it's to replace, we retendered the property management service in the Parnell estate. So that's an indicative figure to include the management of the estate, the tenancies, planned and reactive maintenance of the homes we have there.
Okay, thank you. So Angela Donnelly, Councillor Donnelly.
Just clarification, there's no parking at Castleknock. The only train stations to have parking is Coolmine and Clonsilla. And Anne-Marie did say to Councillor Healy in January when we were being asked to pass the parking bylaws, and it was in relation to a different subject, to parking at apartments, that she would go back out to public consultation and relook and review the parking bylaws if that's what the councillors wanted, and she'd do that in a speedy fashion. And just to clarify as well, although we're talking about the money going from, or the nearest train station being €3.50, people are going from €2 a day to €5 a day. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, and then Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, just following up on Councillor Donnelly. Yeah, I think Mary's thinking of Coolmine train station where the charge is over €4. I suppose what I'd say is that the Coolmine fee was increased. I used to use it. Was increased over a 10-year period from €2 to €4. It was increased very gradually, whereas this is a very abrupt increase. So, listen, if we can do anything, I think we should.
Councillor Brennan Ryan.
Thanks, Mayor. At the last meeting, when we were discussing the report, we agreed to refer the matter of apartment blocks to the SPC. So perhaps this matter could be included in that referral, and they could consider that as well.
Okay. Personally, I think that's a good suggestion. But
that's fine.
Mary T. Daly.
We can bring it to the, it can be raised at the next SPC, but there's no agreement that we were going back out on public consultation with regards to the parking bylaws. I agreed that I would come back with a report on how you can amend a bylaw, and also with regards to the position with regards to apartments, and I came back with that. The report is there from the last council meeting, and that's going to it'll probably go to the next SPC in June.
Okay, and then finally, Councillor Ted Leddy.
Thank you. Just briefly there, I seen in the report that there is works were done on the Hout Road due to a landslide, and I'm just wondering if management are aware that following the extreme weather that we had last month, there was also landslides in the strawberry beds, and if there are any plans to conduct, I suppose, examinations to make sure that it's not a permanent problem that could happen in the future, because I'm sure we'd all agree landslides are potentially very frightening and very damaging. Thanks.
Okay, who wants to take that? Mary, is that you again?
Thanks, Councillor Daly. Yeah, we had, there was a landslide, yes, at Strawberry Beds, so we had to close off that road. And we've had to close off the road and, sorry, I don't know where I was going there. So the Senior Executive Engineer for the Castleknock-Mulhuddard area is looking into that. We did have some coastal damage as well in Balbriggan, and that's been looked at by the Senior Executive Engineer for Swords as well. So we have had a number of areas where we've had little landslides, and that'll be monitored. We have to keep monitoring it.
Councillor Tony Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to raise the need for the upgrade of the Knoll Road. I think there was a question put by Deputy Grace Boland to the Minister O'Brien with regard to upgrades exit 5 and exit 6 on the M1. But it was made very, very clear by the Minister that the Knoll Road exit or Knoll Road upgrade is a regional road and it is a responsibility for local authority. So I need the Chief Executive to have a look at a funding model for that, because it's going back since I think 2011 when the first meeting of the Chamber of Commerce met with the Chief Executive in order to discuss the opportunity to create a proper road into the Stevenstown area. So it's an area that needs a serious attention. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, before I go to Councillor Malachy Quinn, I just want to go on record as supporting what Councillor Tony Murphy's called for. Councillor Quinn.
Report. I just want to, you mentioned there around the assessment of coastal erosion in Balbriggan. Have the area from Barnagera to Soldiers Cottages along the coast there, I was speaking to some of the guys from Fingal Rowing, the weekend, and they were very concerned about the erosion of the cliff face there. It's at a very early stage, but if we could have a look at that and see is there any measures going forward to address that. Thank you.
Okay, and then I'm just going to ask one question. It's part of a meeting I had today with Brendan Ryan, Tony Murphy, Grania Maguire in Balbriggan about the proposed swimming platform. And look, the issue of coastal erosion popped because there's a serious issue there in Balbriggan, down near the car park, near the nursing home, where the proposed swimming platform is supposed to go. And there's other works going on. And I know up in Skerries, and Brendan mentioned Rush. So the coastal erosion's on the move, and it's hitting those towns and that part of the coast. And as a council, we need to review how we're handling all this. We're looking after Portrane the best we can, very slow, but we're getting there, and that kind of area. But we're going to have to look at the whole coast, and the council executive have to come together to figure out what to do about this. And there's a special, I've requested a meeting for the 5 councillors in that ward to meet the Chief Executive and other people involved. I'm just raising it here under Chief Executive's report. Don't necessarily want a response because it's a kind of a big question. So we'll go back to the other questions, which were the Knoll Road and what else was raised? I can't remember the last questions. Does anyone else want to answer? Mary T, did you get another question? And then Matthew on the Knoll Road. Go on. Okay, go on.
Sorry, what's happening here? Exit 5 and exit 6, Councillor Murphy, yeah, you're correct. Regional roads are the responsibility of the local authority. If you want to email me the details, this is the first time that has come on my radar with regards to the Knoll Road, but it can be certainly something that can be considered under the 3-year capital programme, because it's generally 3 million that goes in to do works on the regional roads.
Hey, I'm going to go to, hold on now, we've another response from,
is it Matt?
Oh, you've more? Matthew, yeah. Matthew McAleese would like to respond to that too.
Thanks, Mayor. There was just a few outstanding questions there. The Royal Canal, I don't believe that's council work. I think, but we'll check in with Waterways Ireland, who own the property. I can get back to you on that, just at the property there at the back of Delwood. And the Liffey Valley, the SAAO meeting, I understand the next rotation of that is with South Dublin County Council, so again we'll just follow up South Dublin and try and get a date for that. We're as anxious to meet as the councillors are. The upgrade of the Knoll Road is contained within the capital programme, and is currently to be funded out of levies. That's it for me.
I'm going to move on if that's all the questions that I think were asked. So next is Mayor's business. What? Report noted. Anyway, Mayor's business none. So on to the next conference report. These are for noting. So 27 conference report 27A and 27B noted. Correspondence A to E noted. Number 29, departmental ministerial correspondence noted. And then we're straight into motions. So if number 30 up first, Councillor Cahill Haughey, chatty bench, signage on existing benches in each local area, proposed by Councillor Cahill Haughey, I presume, seconded by Councillor Emer Carboni Mangan. Cahill, do you want to speak or will we get to report? Do you want to speak to it or? Okay.
So yeah, I was contacted by the president of Malahide Lions Club a few months ago about this. She said she'd noticed a lot of older people, particularly around Malahide, that were kind of more lonely, people who might have been widowed or widowers. And I suppose we all know older people that have, lost loved ones since COVID. I think just that ability to connect with people and probably talk to strangers, people probably got out of the habit of that. So it would be good to get back into it. So I put it forward at the Howth Malahide ACM, and I was happy that a sign was installed on one of the benches on Malahide Marina. So I just thought, why not put it forward for one of these in each LEA. Wouldn't be very expensive compared to most things that are asked for. I think it could make a small difference to a lot of people, and they have proved to be quite successful in the north, and I know in parts of England. So Yeah, look, I'd be interested in hearing any other points of view on this, and hearing the reply from Ms Daly. Thanks.
Councillor Brendan Ryan.
Thanks, Mayor. I wish to support the motion by Councillor Haughey. I had a very similar motion passed unanimously at the Area Committee last year with a very similar response, positive reply. We took up the challenge to involve an organisation working in the mental health area. A recent meeting took place involving some members of the operations team together with myself and a representative of Thrive Balbriggan to explore possibilities. It's our intention to engage with Thrive Swords as well. But Thrive Balbriggan is an initiative of Mental Health Ireland and is supported by Fingal County Council. It's already an award winner for the Great Places and Spaces map for Balbriggan. So the idea is basically operations, maybe Healthy Fingal, mental health organisations such as Thrive working together to develop a unique Fingal version of this. So Thrive Balbriggan are currently doing some work on developing the concept, but I just want to ask Ms Moonan to put up a photograph that I took in Wales before Christmas. And this is the concept that we discussed, and we're reasonably happy that we can come up with a version of it that will work for Fingal. The idea is that we can maybe work with Balbriggan, work with Swords perhaps. Now, the Thrive Balbriggan are off looking at some concepts, that we can call our own. The idea here, this is in the Welsh language as well as the Irish language. The idea for us would be we would have it in the Irish language as well. So a little bit of excitement in the small group we had in terms of trying to make this a reality. So hopefully we can work with Councillor Haughey in his area and others in different local areas as well to see if we can develop it for all of Fingal. So just wanted to give you that brief update. Thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Grania Maguire.
Thank you, Chair. And again, I would like to support the motion, but I think we're nearly overlooking at what we are trying to achieve here. I think in every town and village there is a bench. All we need to do is put a sign on it. I don't think we have to recreate a bench. We have buddy benches in schools that the Men's Shed have made very successful. There is an opportunity here just to put a sign on the bench. Along the seafront in Balbriggan, various groups and organisations took control of a bench and they painted it. The local cancer group, the road runners, and they had different designs on it. So there's an opportunity to make the benches that we already have usable and to put this chatty bench sign. So maybe there's an opportunity for a competition for a school to design the sign for a chatty bench. But I definitely think it's something that should be rolled out. You see the people sitting on the benches. Let's encourage more of it. But we have the benches. We just need to put the sign on it. Thank you.
Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Thank you. I had a motion at the Public Realm SPC just relating to public street benches, because I note on the response we spoke about places where we have benches where there's a nice view, and we are pretty good, we're very good at benches with views, but we are lacking street benches, and very often it's in the middle of our villages where people might go to the post office, collect their pension, down to the shops or whatever. And when you get a bit older, short distances can seem very, very long, and there's lots of older people who literally don't leave their homes to go down to the local shops anymore because they can't make the distance. So my proposal was just about us having, just in recognition that benches contribute to our urban comfort by offering respite for pedestrians, particularly older people, that we should have a minimum of a street bench every kilometre in our villages. So I think, look, there's no harm to have chatty bench on them, and I agree that we could just add that to benches. But Irish people and older Irish people are particularly good at chatting. They don't need to be asked, but they do need somewhere to sit. So I totally support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor James Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for bringing this motion forward. It's when I first kind of seen this in the Dublin Inquirer, when they were following what was happening out that way, I thought it was a fantastic idea, but it can't be in isolation. We have a problem in Ireland here, and it's loneliness. We are the loneliest country in Europe. We're kind of 20% of the population self-report that they are lonely. And it is an element I've spoken about in this council before, that we're very good at having strategic documents for young adults. We're very good at strategic documents for over 55s. But we are missing that cohort group from their kind of late 20s to 55 that do struggle to connect with their neighbours, that do struggle to connect with their community, and especially those like myself and a growing population that don't have children, which is normally the main outlet to connect with. So while I support this motion, I certainly would like to see it more as a tip of the spear to start a conversation that is badly needed in this county. It's a conversation about loneliness and about connecting within the community. I'd certainly kind of push back against the idea that I just need to sign. I would certainly like to see something in conjunction with the Arts Department to raise awareness. I think a sign will be lost. Something that will stand out, whether by colour or by design, creates a conversation. It makes people more aware. I think that is what is needed here. But I would not like to be in a position where I think first step should be the sign, but I certainly think we should be planning for something more. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Joe Newman.
Thanks, Mayor. I support the motion. I think we probably need to go a stage further rather than just having a chatty bench there. I think maybe we should be looking at encouraging volunteers to be active in that department. I know the Irish people are chatty, and especially coming up to elections, I'm sure many a councillor here will be willing to talk to people. But certainly I think a volunteer group that would be conscious of what the chatty bench is about and be in the area to try and encourage more dialogue between people. I think that the sign in itself, I don't think will help, but I don't think it's a solution. That maybe some type of volunteering would probably move along a bit better. Thanks.
Councillor Cahill Boland.
Thank you, Mayor. Some months ago, I noticed when I was looking at a community project, a programme on television which discussed the impact of bringing young people together. And the design of the bench was fundamental to the success of their project. And it was, in whatever way the bench was configured, encouraged them to sit and to talk, rather than simply a bench being a long straight plank. You know, the guys at either end don't actually interact. And I think that if we were going to go to chatty bench, that some consideration should be given to the design of the bench to ensure that it effectively was a community on the bench, not just people sitting down and having a rest. Thank you. And by the way, when I'm out at election time, I'm not there to chat. I'm there to listen and do things.
Very good. So, Councillor Jimmy Gearan.
I'm surprised, really. The chatty man is a great idea. I think the best contribution tonight came from Councillor Humphreys. That, yeah, let's talk about benches, but there is a much wider issue. But the much wider issue has nothing to do with the benches. I mean, we have a bench out in Holt, which is designed superbly because people can sit down and charge their phones on it. And there's so often so many people around it that there's too many people talking. I think the wider contribution from Councillor Humphreys is one which leads to different debates, and we shouldn't try and merge the two too much into the one. I think it's very important to encourage people to talk and all this, but you know, we've loads of benches in Hope Malahide. We got 2 new ones there recently. No, the point I'm making is there's not a shortage of benches. And the different initiatives taken, such as the solar charge bench, I think, that charges phones and that has groups of people around it. So that works. So I welcome the debate, I support the motion, but I also support and welcome the contribution made by Councillor Humphreys, because it is so true. Thank you.
Okay, that appears to be everyone. I'd like to say a few words, not a lot. Social connection and social activity equals longer lifespan. That's well documented, plenty of data there. So, and loneliness is it's a tough place to be, especially if you're a widow or a widower. And I've met a few out in Skerry sitting, looking pretty lonely. And odd time I sit down and have a chat, I'm on a walk, but they're sitting there on their own, the kind of, especially the year afterwards. So this sort of initiative is great. There are other issues to do with mental health and people not feeling great and, thinking of doing serious things. And these benches are designed to kind of avert that if possible. I'm hoping that one will land in Skerry shortly. I just want to clarify with the motion that it's on some existing benches, that it's not all the benches in Fingal we're going to put a sign on, because it's not clear in the motion. But I think from listening to Councillor Hoy, that's what he's saying. In each ward, you want some benches. It's a great initiative, and we should just do it. Don't overanalyse, get it done. I get the bit about, was it Jimmy said, he's gone, like sitting and looking straight ahead. There are benches along the quays, and they're designed such a way that people are kind of facing each other at angles. So they they talk and whatever. Anyway, it's a great motion. I approve it. Do you want to hear from the executive, the response? Who's taking it? Is it Mary? Mary, you on it? Yeah, and then we'll go back to Councillor Hoy.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Hoy. Yes, very. Aileen O'Connor and her team have looked at this, and as you know, we have a budget every year for benches, and we try and put as many benches as we possibly can out when the members request it. I think with regards to this and the response we have given, it isn't just about the bench, it's about the message that's going out with the bench, and it's also about the design of the bench is really important, as Councillor Boland said there. So no, the Parks team are looking at it. We're going to look at it to see what, but I do think you do have to look at the design as well, and the social media message that goes out with it, which is, as Councillor Humphrey said, it's raising the issue about loneliness and people talking to themselves. So absolutely, the Parks team will look at it, and we'll see where we'll go from here. We haven't got any feedback from the one that was put on Malahide Marina, but that doesn't. We got no bad feedback. We got no good feedback, but it seems to be working. So absolutely willing to look at it.
Okay, and I should have said, I want to congratulate, before we're back to Councillor Hoy, congratulate everyone that's done any work on this already, and in particular Councillor Ryan, who just laid out the work he was doing on it. So go back to Councillor Hoy.
Yeah, thanks for the reply there, and thanks to all the other speakers. There's different ways of looking at it. That's just the one that's in Malahide. So yeah, quite subtle and much cheaper than. Although I appreciate the one that Brendan Ryan sent in. Most motions here are calling for extra money or calling for this or that. This does not cost that much money. And to be clear, yeah, I was looking for just one basically pilot in each of the local electoral areas. It mentions mental health organisations. Not every town would have a kind of mental health organisation. So I think, in this case, it was Malahide Lions Club, but often it could be Tidy Towns or any of the the Fingal age-friendly groups. I think if the councillors in each area could maybe have a think about it and link in with one of them groups, even just one in each local electoral area to start. As I said, wouldn't be a big cost. Is it going to solve loneliness altogether? No, but could it make a small difference to someone who wants to go out and have a chat to someone and mightn't want to spend money on going into a cafe or a restaurant? I think it could. So I appreciate the engagement from Ms. Daly, and looking forward to working with her predecessor maybe on this, and seeing which way to do it. I know other people were saying a sign's not enough. I know some of the councils might paint the whole bench yellow or paint it red or whatever. maybe you don't want to draw too much attention to it either if there's a bit of a stigma about feeling lonely. So, you know, there's different ways of looking at it, but whichever way it's done, I suppose if the Fingal social media channels would highlight which bench it's for, and it'll get the conversation going about loneliness in general. But yeah, I'm happy to note the report, and thanks for the reply.
Okay, report noted. Okay. We're going to the next motion, which is Councillor J.K. Onamwera, and that's deferred. The councillors asked for it to be deferred. Then we're on to number 32, Councillor P. Quinlan, housing supports. And have I a seconder? I don't appear to have a seconder. So we have to move on. Sorry, Councillor Quinlan, there's no seconder. So we go on to number 33, Councillor M. Quinn, social housing acquisition funding. Proposed by Councillor Quinn, Malachy Quinn, yes, and seconded by Councillor Smith, I think. Malachy, if you want to go, or we get the report read first, whichever way you want.
Speak first.
Okay.
Okay. The greatest failure of successive governments over many years has been the reliance on private construction of homes and the reduction in the building of social housing. This has affected a wide range of issues affecting the health and well-being of our citizens, including the developmental milestones of children in emergency provision. The rise in mental health within society and the emigration of our youth as they increasingly cannot see how they are going to be able to afford to buy a home. The first major decision made by the Minister for Housing, James Brown, on taking office was to slash funding for vital homeless prevention supports, including the tenant in situ scheme. While the Minister denied that he was cutting the funding, figures provided to Sinn Féin by a number of local authorities have shown that not only has the funding been cut, but the rate of the cut ranges from 72% up to 96% on 2024 levels. The tenant in situ scheme is part of a wider social housing acquisition programme, as we all know, which allows councils to purchase second-hand homes to prevent homelessness or to get people out of emergency accommodation. I note from the response from the council that Fingal County Council acquired a total of 155 properties under the tenant in situ scheme at a cost of 51.1 million. The scheme was working. We can see that. It's working, and it required increased funding to make further improvements. The funding of this scheme was positively preventing families from entering homelessness. The resulting consequences of cutting of this funding by government is plain and simple and obvious for all. We've seen the most recent homeless figures by Focus Ireland of 17,112 in homelessness, and that figure includes 5,319 children in homelessness. The direct result of these cuts is that fewer tenant in situ purchases take place in 2025, and even further will take place this year. The tsunami of homelessness will only continue if the tenant in situ scheme is not properly funded in line with state building of homes. We in Sinn Féin warned Minister James Brown that this would be the case, but he carried on regardless. Now we learn that the Minister for Housing is considering cutting the funding even further this year. The 2026 allocation for the scheme is set to wind the scheme down further, while we see homelessness on the increase. It is also important that we as a council are adequately resourced to administer the tenant in situ scheme. The Minister must provide resources to support the Housing Department in the working of the tenant in situ scheme. We have all had contact from tenants, and we have received notices to quit, and the individual landlords is looking to engage in a tenant in situ scheme. I am currently working with a mother of two who is a victim of domestic abuse and has received a notice to quit. The landlord is looking to provide an opportunity for the mother to remain in the home by going through the tenant in situ scheme, but there's no funding available. So now, after exhausting all avenues, the mother and her children have a very uncertain future. There are many cases such as theirs, and we've seen them all in our offices and through representations that we've made. At a time when eviction notices from landlords are rising, any reduction to funding of vital homeless prevention supports is utter madness. I am urging this council to support this motion, right to the Minister for Housing, to restore the funding to at least the 2024 levels and remove the restrictions imposed on the operation of this scheme. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Dean Mulligan.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Quinn, for bringing this motion forward. I just want to fully support it. You know, when you look at the 51.1 million spent on 155 properties, that roughly works out about 329,000 per property, or 330,000 if you want to go upwards. That's a very good value in this day and age for property in 2024 and 2025 as an average baseline cost. Obviously, some properties are larger than others, and that's me generalising, but I've had massive difficulty in 2025 with some really difficult cases. I had a ward of court who requires 24-hour care left from their home because we couldn't provide any supports or accommodation. Like, this is someone that the state is actually caring for, and we as a council couldn't support them when they got an eviction notice. I've had 15 people in the last couple of weeks get on to me regarding eviction notices because of the rental situation that this government has engaged in now with the short-term rental changes. Landlords seem to be very eager to sell up and send notices to quit across the country at this moment in time, given the pending changes in the rental market that are coming down the line that the Minister has announced. And whilst I agree there needs to be changes in the rental market, if such changes result in a situation where you have so many people being terminated their notice, we're just going around this pendulum that we can't fix, and we need to do something. And the tenant in situ scheme was a good reaction to a very bad situation that shouldn't have happened with the eviction ban at the time, but at least it gave us hope and some solace when people had noticed to quit. We went through the threshold process. Now we have nothing because homeless HAP, there's no properties there, and the situation with rents is only getting worse. We do need to do something. I know they're only going to pay lip service to us, but at the end of the day, we're going to be going to the members of the homeless team here and the housing team here, and we'll have no answers, and we'll watch more people go homeless on our watch. Thank you.
Councillor John Burchett.
Fully support the motion. As Councillor Mulligan outlined, this was the kind of carrot as the eviction ban was being scrapped. The eviction ban was working. It was reducing the housing or the homeless numbers. The government couldn't have that though, because fundamentally they represent landlords who need to evict people if they're going to squeeze maximum rents. And government housing policy works for landlords, it works for vulture funds, it works for developers. That's who it's intended to work for, and that's what the data shows. It doesn't work for those for whom housing is a place to live. We've increased house prices, increased rents, increased homelessness, all very, very predictable, and all a direct result of government policy and ideology. Not an accident, not unpredictable, not a natural disaster. After the election in 24, the government felt comfortable enough to start cutting back on the tenants in situ scheme, because really they want the market to decide everything when it comes to housing. And it's a social catastrophe in multiple ways. One of the ways we saw in the previous racist motion from Councillor Quinlan, which thankfully didn't find a seconder, and fair play to the council for that. But that's one of the consequences of this housing policy. Migrants being blamed for the lack of housing, when really it's Irish men in suits that caused this problem. So we're going to continue to see the homeless numbers rising. We're going to continue to see social damage being done, children's lives being wrecked, until we start providing housing on the basis of need and not for profit. That means a state construction utility building tens of thousands of social and affordable homes.
Councillor Breeden McDonough.
Yeah, we've got thousands of children in the Dublin region homeless, and the single biggest reason, if you go through all of the figures for homelessness and people going into emergency accommodation, is eviction, and it's usually no-fault eviction. No-fault eviction is actually, no fault is where you're paying your rent, you haven't done anything wrong, you haven't been a disruptive tenant, and in most countries in Europe, you can't evict somebody no fault. There are mechanisms to protect tenants, and there are arguments around if the argument here was we've got limited resources, tenant in situ doesn't add an additional unit to the housing stock. That's kind of the impression. That's what they're saying. But the cost of emergency accommodation, the cost of homelessness, and the lifelong cost of homelessness, the scientific evidence is really bad about the impact of somebody going into small children going into emergency accommodation. It's really bad. So I think we have adequate resources in order to invest in this, as well as investing in new homes and increasing the stock. And I think, talk of the vacant properties and those kind of things, we need to make sure that people aren't being put into emergency accommodation for 12 months and all of the damage that does to particularly small children. So, no scheme is perfect, and I think, as suggested before, we were getting good value. I have two cases at the moment where, in one case, where people are trying to get the tenant in situ, and we're saying the new criteria mean that you haven't a hope. So we're literally being able to say, like, there's actually no hope. It was difficult enough under the previous scheme, but at the moment, there's no hope. So I'd be very happy to support this motion, and I really do think that the benefit to people and to the most, the people in the greatest difficulty, people who have, some of whom are on their second or third eviction for a family member to move in, somebody who got within 5 years I was dealing with her for a second time, and with serious illnesses and other issues with 3 children, and you're being told again an eviction again through no fault of their own. So I really do think that this is a mistake, and it'll have a much greater impact not continuing this than the government really truly appreciate. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you, and I would like to fully support the motion. The tenant in situ scheme was just one of those things that I don't think anyone could really disagree with. It's so valuable. It's valuable from an economic perspective because, as a previous member pointed out, like, we've only spent 330,000 per home for people. Like, we're not building homes at that level. That's relatively cheap. But behind all of the stats and the money, every single person in this room, I'm absolutely sure, has had conversations, really difficult conversations with people, and particularly the uptick has gone up again in the last few weeks, where people in our communities, people who are working, people who are teachers in the local school, people who have their kids in the local school, in the local GA club, they're part of the community, and they have been living in these homes for a long time, and this was a lifeline potentially for people to keep them in homes. And to have to say to people, your only option now is emergency accommodation, which I've been saying to people, it's just absolutely heartbreaking, and it's outrageous. And it's uneconomical as well. That's the real point I don't understand. So I just wanted to make the point about the landlords as well. I know landlords get a very bad name, and I'm not here to stick up for them, but I've had a lot of phone calls from landlords in the last while. They own one house, and they have been so desperate to try and keep the people that they have renting their homes. They know them, they've been there for years or whatever, and for various reasons, they're not corporate landlords, they're not vulture funds, they are just people with one home who have they might be an accidental landlord, and for whatever reason they need to sell the home they're in, and they feel absolutely awful about putting people out on the street. That's not something that anybody takes, or anyone I've spoken to takes lightly, and they're more than willing to take below the market value. They know full well they could get 50 or 100 grand more if they put it on the market, but you know, they have a social conscience, and they're trying to do something right by the tenant. And even though it's not their responsibility to house people, but are just getting nothing back from the government. So I absolutely support this, and I couldn't understand why anyone would disagree with that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Chair Sheehan.
I just want to support Councillor Quinn's motion. I'm sure he and every other councillor here has come across that situation where the tenant and the landlord is looking to get into a tenant in situ position, and it obviously falls through. And again, the points raised by Councillor Mulligan and Councillor Hopkins, the cost benefit. It's you know, obvious that there's an economic benefit to it, to the state and to the people involved. Not that that should be the reason for doing it, but I just wanted to support his motion. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thanks a lot. It strikes me that we have 2 dates in our diary at the end of the month to rezone more land in Fingal to provide more housing, and we absolutely need to build more houses. But tenant in situ was a very easy is a bit too simplified, but it did work, and it wasn't a panacea. It certainly wasn't a be-all and end-all, but it worked. And I was just looking up figures. We've over 17,000 people homeless in Ireland, and over 10,000 of them are in Dublin. And the key drivers in Ireland are limited supply, but also increasing rates of domestic violence, with 189 households citing domestic violence as a reason for needing emergency accommodation by Q3 of 2025. And last year we spoke about this. In March 2025, the number of homeless people was 15,418. So despite what we're doing, the numbers just keep increasing and increasing, and there's no doubt about it that the changes to the recent changes to rental agreements has driven a lot of people into homeless accommodation. And as Councillor Mulligan said, you know, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is good and bad in it. But really, for me, I suppose what Tenant in Situ did, it kept families in their areas. It kept children in their schools. It kept that consistency within that family. And that is the greatest impact on families. And I think we will see in years to come the damage that has done, especially to young children, because their local school, their local clubs, that sense of belonging, just so many of our children that are missing that, and Tenant in Situ prevented that from happening.
Okay, thank you. John Smith, Councillor John Smith.
Thank you. Look, I'm very happy to second this, and it was really refreshing at the time when these cuts were announced that there was support against the cuts across this chamber from Mayor, yourself, and from memory other members of your party as well. The scheme and its equivalents in different countries work when they're funded correctly. The UK has had similar schemes in local authorities since '96. Germany, Berlin in particular, goes one step further, and local authorities have purchased whole developments and apartment blocks to stop them falling into the hands of private investors and vulture funds and displacing tenants. I think we could probably take a few more leaps out of the German book and take their processes when it comes to the bidding wars that we see that just destroy the morale of young first-time buyers and most buyers at that. The Tenant in Situ scheme was probably one of the only demand-side interventions that didn't dramatically increase housing inflation here, and it was fantastic at preventing people falling into homelessness. And I think we've all worked with a number of different families where they couldn't have been more grateful for the lifeline that it provided them. The Minister gave the rationale that the money would be better spent building new homes, but it creates a complete false dichotomy that it's an either or, and that which is, look, it's just crazy to take a fake laissez-faire approach when it comes to something so essential as housing. We're seeing it with utilities now as well, and the costs just skyrocketing, and I know we're going to feel the impact of that in the next few years. But we are, I feel, beyond breaking point at this stage. I don't see how it can go on. I don't know how longer we can look at rising figures beyond 17,000 and think that this is acceptable and that what's working. I think we need to take a step back and admit this is fundamentally broken. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks to Councillor Quinn for submitting the motion. I certainly will be supporting it, and obviously a number of us here, certainly the Labour Group and others, opposed the removal of the eviction ban. And you know, one of the measures that was introduced around that time was the tenant in situ scheme. It's a scheme that has worked in an incredibly difficult situation until it was gutted by the Minister in 2025. In December 24. Over 46% of all actions to prevent homelessness, keeping people in their home, nationally came through the tenant in situ scheme. By December 2025, that figure had fallen to just 11%. So that's a very dramatic gutting, really, of a scheme that was successful in keeping thousands of people in their homes. And at the same time as the government has introduced radical changes to rent setting through the amendment bill for tenancies, rents continue to rise and the number of people entering homelessness continues to grow. The Minister has chosen quite deliberately to restrict one of the few tools local authorities had to intervene, and that reflects the failure of national government to give the necessary powers and tools to local authorities to address the housing crisis. I think we all know that many local authorities, and this includes Fingal, effectively ran out of funding for new tenant in situ applications halfway through 2025, and councils were left unable to act. And similar to Councillor Hopkins, I was approached by at least 2 landlords who would have been happy to keep tenants in their homes, were unable to do so due to lack of funding for the tenant in situ scheme. And families who could have been protected instead faced the trauma of uncertainty or homelessness. That was an avoidable decision, and it flowed from a deliberate decision to cap funding and tighten criteria. Like, the Minister's position on this is as absurd as his attack on Met Éireann for apparently causing or contributing to recent weather events. The Minister claims he doesn't want local authorities relying on the scheme. Councils rely on it because many of them don't have another immediate mechanism to prevent people entering homelessness. The tenant in situ is a vital safety net, and removing that safety net doesn't reduce need, it simply increases homelessness.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jimmy Gearan.
Yeah, I have to say I fully support this motion. I think it's bizarre that we're in a situation where we have the housing crisis we have and we don't have no-fault eviction ban in place. It's absolutely bizarre. I think it's bizarre that we're allowing vulture funds buy up apartment blocks. I have no problem with that, but there should be laws that people have security of tenure, that people have rights that can't be taken away at the whim. I think it's bizarre that a parent can rent a house for 6 years and then say, I want the house back because my daughter's of an age. I don't think that should be allowed. If people are renting, they are entitled to security of tenure. And if we made a few simple changes like that, it would play its part in giving people a sense of security and in really tackling the issues that we see when people have to leave an area where they have to go into homeless accommodation. I have to be honest, the landlords, many who have contacted me as well, no sympathy. Oh, I want to sell the house because I want my daughter in it, or I want eviction. That shouldn't be the case. The most important person in a property is the person and the family occupying it, and we should be legislating to protect them. Thanks.
Councillor Ted Leddy.
Thank you. I'd be interested to know what the impact has been on the new tightened eligibility on Fingal. The report says there were 155 properties acquired from tenant in situ last year, or into 24 and 25. I know it's only 3 months into the year, but do we have any indication about whether about what the numbers will be or what the trajectory is? Because that would definitely be a strong indicator of what impact it's having in a practical sense. Thanks.
Okay, that's all the speakers. I'll say a few words. I do support the motion, and I do support more funds for tenants in situ. I had a couple of cases in the 155 properties there, and there's some very relieved and happy families in homes now because of that. So I need some clarity. What funding have we got for 2026 for the acquisition of second-hand homes or tenant in situ? There's a lot of terminology thrown around. I don't know if they're one and the same, but I'm asking. Dublin City Council got 110.7 million for tenant in situ. A statement has been made that 373 million has been allocated nationwide, which is plus 80 million on the 290 million drawn down in 2025. Now, I know civil servants play with phrases. Allocated and drawn down mightn't be apples and oranges, the same figure, but they're claiming that they've given more money. Drawn down could be drawn down this year and the balance drawn next year, and you add it up and then it's the same figure. So I note too that 50 million has specifically been allocated for the purchase of 4-bedroom homes where people are on the list homeless for a long time because 4-bedroom homes are not around. And I know Councillor Ryan has been campaigning on that as well. So can we get some clarity? What funding has Fingal for tenant in situ? Is Fingal tenant in situ still in operation? Are we buying homes for tenant in situ? Because all the discussion around here seems to think we're not. So are we doing it, or are the conditions so restricted now that it's dropped, as John Walsh has said over there, that it's very difficult to help someone with a tenant in situ? And surely in March 2026 we can't be out of money, or are we? So can you answer those questions, please? Thank you.
Since the agenda went out, we did get our allocation of funding for 2026. So Fingal has got 30.7 million euro, of which an additional 7 million has been added to the 10 million to deal with exits from homelessness. Plus we've got 6 million to support AHB acquisition of homes, to support people coming out of tenant in situ or out of homelessness. And we've got 7.7 million for direct tenant in situ. So it's a full 30.7 million towards second-hand acquisitions. And we've also got advance notice of 6.2 million towards acquisitions that will start in 2026 and complete in 2027. So we are working on a number of properties at the moment, and a number of them are going through conveyancing. The criteria for the scheme, as mentioned, are a lot narrower than they would have been in 24 and 25, and the focus is mainly towards people with disabilities, older persons and care leavers at the moment, in addition to the large 4-bed properties for families who have been in homeless accommodation for a period of time. So our homeless team and our acquisitions team are working closely together to identify families and properties who meet this criteria and to progress with these acquisitions in 2026.
I don't know if everyone else's question was answered there. Is anyone? I'm going to come back to, certainly coming back to the proposal or the motion. Councillor Humphreys.
Just for clarity, the 7 million, the 6 million, the 7.7 and the 6.2 million, is that on top of the 30.7 million that was allocated, or is that taken out of that 30.7 million? So I just wasn't too clear when you were breaking it down. Is that on top of, or it's coming out at overall allocation?
Right. I have 3 speakers here, and first is Malachy Gafour. Malachy Quinn. Malachy, do you want to query what was said, or do you want to wrap up? Or do you want to ask some questions, or wait to wrap up?
And I'm glad we're taking time to discuss this. It's a very important issue. Councillor Humphreys is asking the question there, which I wanted to ask. Is it a breakdown? Can them figures be shared with all of the councillors, so when we are going back to constituents, that we can inform our constituents of exactly what Fingal are doing. There is a reduction in how much money you are getting, right? You are definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, you are definitely trying to maximise the impact that you can make, without a shadow of a doubt. This motion obviously is to go to the Minister for Housing, but if we can get additional funding, I'm fairly confident that the Housing Department in Fingal will grab it with 2 hands and make it go further, because it's an enormous amount of work, and I commend you for all of the work that you do. But if we could get that information shared with all the councillors. Thank you.
Okay, I think this motion is going to be agreed, but there are 3 speakers, and then we'll go to agree on the motion or not. Dean Mulligan.
Yeah, can I just get a breakdown of how much, or can you send on the back of this, not obviously now, how much was spent in 2025 on the tenants in situ scheme? Because I had one person who I mentioned earlier who was awarded court over 65, 24-hour care, who didn't meet the criteria. So I'm just wondering how much was spent in 2025. The email originally was sent on the 4th of October 2024 regarding his termination to quit. So I'm just wondering how much we spent last year on the tenants in situ scheme with the strict criteria that came in, just so I can ascertain my own timelines. And that's it, yeah, just if you can break down what was spent 24, 2025 between the schemes and yearly spent in acquisitions for both years on the back of this. It doesn't have to be today, but I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know if you can answer this, but I'd just be interested to know, do the housing department here in Fingal think it's a good scheme? And if you could get more money, would you do that? So it looks like we'll have enough money to buy another, based on the previous figures, another 90 houses. But say I have 10 people have contacted me, Dean has 10 people, have we the same 10 people? Like, can you tell us how many people have applied for or have an interest in the tenants in situ scheme? So I suppose I'm trying to find out, if we can buy 90 houses, how short are we with the current ask that we have on your list? And then I suppose, like, if it is 300, and I know that's just an average, 320,000 per house, we're just after making that number up. Like, a lot of the houses in my area are way above that. And so is there anything to facilitate people staying in their communities where the houses are that bit more expensive? Thanks.
Okay, and then finally, Councillor Brian McDonough.
No, just to clarify on two of the questions. So, across the schemes you mentioned there was only one of them sounded like tenant in situ. So they may have been aimed at people who were threatened with eviction, but they're different acquisition types. So I think we should, that seemed to be my understanding of it. Am I wrong? The second thing is, just in the new criteria, are a family with small children with no disabilities and no older person are now not eligible for tenant in situ.
Okay.
So that's my understanding of it. But, so children under 5 without disabilities with their parents, no fault, not eligible for tenant in situ.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to Aoife, but I don't know if she can answer all these questions today. And sure, let's see how we get on. If not, you'll come back with more info, I presume. Thank you.
Okay. Just on a clarification on the figures, so it's 30.7 million, which is on top of the 10 million that was allocated last year to last for 25 and 2026. So we have the 10 million plus the 30.7 million, and they have broken that down and allocated it to exits for homelessness, AHB, CAS delivery, and tenant in situ. They've also indicated an advance sum for properties that will close next year. Would we benefit from additional funds? There are challenges with the scheme. It should be a last measure to support families who are coming out of homelessness. And our homeless team do a lot of very good work on preventing homelessness through many other means. And the focus of this funding is more towards families who are the larger families in a 4-bed need, who have already been in emergency accommodation for a number of years, and to focus on supporting them to leave. What we have found was that the scheme did help a lot of people who were very much in need of the support. However, it also built up a lot of expectation and entitlement for people who maybe, not for everybody, but for landlords who thought it was an easy exit, or for tenants who maybe were recently in private rented accommodation, which then bypassed those that were in the emergency accommodation and should also have been prioritised. So while we saw the benefits from it and we managed to help a lot of people, the scheme had challenges as well. The 24 and 25 figures, the total is 51.1 million. I would have to confirm the breakdown to you. I know it came up in other questions, but I can follow on with that detail again.
Okay, so going to. Okay, want to finish the motion. Go ahead.
That in fact there has been no decrease this year compared to last year. When you add up those figures of 36 plus 10, it's another 6.
So we have 40.7 million euro that we can spend this year on second-hand acquisitions, but the focus is more on vacant second-hand acquisitions rather than tenants in situ, which was the 51.1 million.
Okay, and can we get an answer to Councillor Brian Murphy's question about families and children?
The priority isn't families for the funding that was available this year.
Okay, thank you. So, is the motion agreed? Oh, sorry, who's on there? Councillor John Burchell.
I seem to recall a figure of 40 million for tenant in situ for 2024. I may be wrong, but it seemed to be a specific tenant in situ figure, you know, allocated fully for tenant in situ. Now we have a figure which includes tenant in situ, RAS and other schemes. Has that changed? You know, that it was a specific tenant in situ, you know, budget you were given from central government, but now you get a budget for acquisitions and tenant in situ is just one component of that.
Well, I think you're right, but I'll go back to you, and then we're going to agree or not agree this motion. We have to move on. Right, go for
The
it.
budget last year was across all second-hand acquisitions, but it was up to the local authority as to how they divided it between the different schemes, whereas this year our allocation has been divided before we received it.
Okay, so the motion is before the floor, and is it agreed or not? Agreed? Agreed. Okay, thank you, and thank you for the motion, Councillor Quinn. Right, so we're moving on to number 34, Councillor Karina Johnson, provision of not-for-profit community. Sorry. Karina Johnson, and seconded by John Walsh.
Thanks, Mayor. A number of months ago, I received an email from Fingal Children Young Person Services Committee, which I'm sure most of my colleagues received the same email. They carried out research, and I have to be honest with you, the results of this research on the provision of community not-for-profit childcare facilities in the Fingal area is actually very stark. Less than 5% of community not-for-profit childcare facilities in this area in Fingal, our community non-for-profit childcare facilities in the Fingal area are 5%, and the national average is 25%. That is actually a very stark figure, and it's actually very frightening. What I'm really concerned about is we have public land, we're building social and affordable houses all across the county, in my own area in Donabate, in Balbriggan, in Skerries, Dublin 15, Swords, with creche provisions on those sites. And I really believe very strongly that those creches should be not-for-profit community childcare facilities. I wrote the Minister myself because I'm so concerned about this. My colleague Mark Wall, who is our childcare spokesperson, raised this with the Minister in the Dáil recently. The response I received from the Minister, while I acknowledge that the Minister has made some progress in the fact that they're going to provide 800 places for not-for-profit childcare facilities in the country, that's only 8 creches with 100 childcare places. My concern is that I want to see Fingal at least have one of those childcare facilities that are not for profit. The Minister has also, in her correspondence to me, highlighted the fact that any proposals for the state to acquire buildings or any projects in any area, including Fingal, must come through the County Childcare Committee. So I've reached out to the Childcare Committee and I haven't received any correspondence from them. So I suppose one thing I want to know is, has Fingal County Council had any discussions with the department, with Fingal Childcare Committee? I think this is really, really important. This would be a missed opportunity for Fingal and for all of us as a council to ensure that there are non-for-profit childcare facilities on publicly owned land. And just to give you an example, I live in Donabate, Balmoston, 1,200 homes, social affordable homes, right beside where I live. I've met so many families there, they're delighted to be living there now. But a lot of these families, they moved into affordable houses. They told me, quite honestly, they wouldn't have been able to get into those houses had they not been able to apply for the affordable housing scheme. They're living on the breadline. They're not able to pay high childcare costs. 25% reduction in childcare costs for non-profit on average in the country. Fingal is one of the most expensive counties in the area for childcare costs. I think as a council and as public representatives we have to do better, and we should be starting by looking at public land across the county and ensuring that we have not-for-profit childcare facilities on those sites. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Tara Butler.
Yeah, no, just to support the motion. Just there's a site in mind in, we have a community facility in Rivermead that was shut down many years ago because, we didn't really have an anchor tenant or didn't even have any way of kind of keeping that centre going. But like that's one example in Rivermead, our community building there, where an anchor tenant during the day providing a service such as this, and I have spoken to a non-for-profit group that could be interested in something like that. So like we do need to look at the facilities we have where we could put something in place. But certainly, if when you are looking at this, or we can talk about it again. But certainly, the facility in Rivermead is one where we could operate something like this pretty quickly. And then we have that facility that could be used for other groups, like, football clubs having their meetings. Chess clubs or whatever, or other kind of clubs and groups for the elderly as well in the evening time. So, fully support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor John Burchell.
Yeah, support the motion. Privatised childcare doesn't work. They're competing objectives. The profit motive is in contradiction to the care function, Profits are maximised by delivering the minimum level of care for the highest possible price. And so you have the situation where, our childcare system is failing, along with the private provision of housing that we've discussed over the last couple of motions. So the state abdicates responsibility for what it should be doing itself. It hands it over to private entities like private creches, private developers, private landlords, and then it uses massive, colossal amounts of public money to subsidise those private entities for doing very badly what the state should be doing itself. That's really what's happened in our society, and this is why we have these failures. And really, we need to start learning the lessons because, we've got multiple societal failures across multiple sectors, and it's not going to improve until the state intervenes in a strategic and massive way to correct it and starts providing these, vital societal functions on the basis of need and not for profit.
Okay, Councillor Malachy Quinn.
Thank you very much. I welcome and support the motion. From a question at this meeting, there are 494 private childcare places in Fingal County Council community centres. They're private places. This brings me back to 2015 when I was approached by Balbriggan Community Childcare in regards to the site at Breamore Castle. And we were told that, no, we have another plan for that. 10 years later, it's still empty. And that other plan is still another plan. There was an opportunity there 10 years ago to be able to put in place a community childcare provision to make 2 in Balbriggan. There's also another site at the entrance to the O'Dwyer site, which is also empty, that could be used as a community childcare. I just think it's vitally important that Fingal County Council, and especially the day after International Women's Day, because let's be honest here, it's predominantly women that have to give up their job and to stay at home, and their careers are put on hold because us as a society, we can't provide the supports for families, and women take that decision and they can't carry on their careers, and they're not able to, they feel that they can't contribute to society. And that has to have an overbearing effect going forward. I think we need to be a bit more mature about how we go about these things, and we need to have foresight and realise that we need public, community childcare places. It's happening all over Europe. It's happening all over the world. We're just lagging behind here, and we need to accept that, and we need to move forward at that. Thank you.
Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Yeah, thanks. I fully support this motion. I think Donabate was probably the most chronic place when I was knocking on doors where people were struggling so badly for childcare, public or private. But I'm just looking at the response that's been received, and it talks about that it's important to note that the setting up and operation of childcare services does not fall into the remit of Fingal County Council. So this is something that central government needs to do, because, as it's clearly stated here, Fingal County Council are not resourced either financially or with the people to set these up. I also note that it says on the report that it would be referred to the Works Programme for Community Sports Culture SPC for 2026. It was already on the Works Programme, I'm going to say 2023, I'm not entirely sure. And we didn't progress anything. I was on the committee at the time. And in fact, if the figures that Karina has mentioned there are true, then we've gone down a percentage point, because at the time the research was that we were, in Fingal, we were 6%. We were the lowest in the country. And that's not something we say often about Fingal. Often we're very progressive and we're number one on a lot of things, but we're last in the provision of community childcare in this county. The average is 25%. And in Dublin City, which is our nearest neighbour, it's about 56%. So they're doing a whole lot better than us. We could really just do with copying their model. But look, we're a country that doesn't support women. We don't support women getting back to work and looking after children. And the onus is always on them to just keep, making do, sticking their children into... Basically, I met women who were putting babies into cars to bring them to the next town to get childcare provision. It's not good enough. But I would say we shouldn't accept this motion. We should ensure that we call on central government to make sure that we have the funding to do this. Because saying that we're going to look at it at an SPC, we'll get nowhere doing that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brian Murphy, and just noting we've another motion after this on similar topic from Mark Bold. We'll keep going here. Councillor Brian Murphy.
Brian McDonough, but it's all right.
Sorry, Brian McDonough, sorry.
I've been there, Mayor, I've been there. I know how difficult it is, so I don't have any problem with it. Very much support the motion, and I think it's important, though, that we talk as well about it, early childhood education. And one of the things that is vital about it is that the people who benefit most from it are those with the greatest disadvantage. The benefit to infants from 1 year of age of being socialised, but also having that education, means they get to perform much better, and the disadvantage for many is set already before they even go to school. I think Councillor Burchett is correct about the fact that in an ideal world what we'd have is a state provision of an early childhood education programme, and we'd look to move towards that. But I think it's not all about profit for most early childhood educators, whether they're in the private sector or otherwise. There are some big private operators who are certainly exploiting workers who are on low pay, but there are also many operators who would be better off being paid as educators the same way as teachers or principals are. So we can't solve the whole education system with the early childhood education system, but I think this motion is about trying to achieve what we can achieve. And I think it's a great motion for Councillor Johnson to put forward, and I very much support it. But I think we should also understand we're increasingly professionalising this service, requiring greater standards, and we have a huge turnover and staff problem because people are leaving because they're not being paid properly. And what we need are providers who are not going to exploit workers. We need not-for-profit, but ultimately state providers who are going to provide the high standard of education and pay the people who provide those services to our most precious assets and our most precious people and their children at a young age. So I'd like to support the motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor John Smith.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I'm very happy to support this motion. We had a really robust discussion and debate at our local area committee last month about it. We were highlighting that it's a second mortgage for most families if there's two people working, and it's just simply not sustainable. And there's something broken within that model, because how can it cost a second mortgage when the private providers are telling us they can't make a profit, and yet the people working there are being employed and being paid scandalously low wages? Councillor Butler was spot on. I think in our own area in Swords, Rivermead would be a fantastic facility to be used like this, and I'm glad to see our community team are meeting with residents out there this evening to discuss that facility and what would be best for the community. But we've known for a good while that there is a desperate need for community childcare in that area. And there's another element here that hasn't been mentioned so far tonight, is even those, and I agree with Councillor Buttrell on a lot of what he says there, but I use private providers myself because you have no other choice, and some of them are fantastic and they provide an amazing service to the community. But even some of them are now being driven out of the market because of the way we've introduced rates. So that creche on the corner or that play school that was in someone's side house is now no longer viable in many areas, and I think there's a serious question has to be raised over that, and if that is viable, we're suddenly going to see demand. It's already through the roof, it's just going to shoot through the roof even higher, and the supply is dwindling and drying up. So I think it's a very serious issue that needs to be taken a lot more of the spotlight at the moment, and I'm fully supportive of your motion. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jaron Jack Kelly, and I have another 3 speakers after that.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Johnston for bringing this forward. I agree totally with her motion. The biggest concern I have there is when I see Fingal is one of the lowest levels of community-based non-for-profit childcare provision in the country, approximately 5%. That's just hopping out at me. I'm actually mind-boggled by that, especially compared to the national average of 25%. It represents a significant structural deficit in public-orientated early years infrastructure and leaves families disproportionately reliant on private provision. It's pretty concerning. I know we're one of the fastest growing and youngest populations nationally here in Fingal. Long waiting lists for disability and early intervention services, high numbers of families in emergency accommodation. You know, it's a huge concern. But going back to positive to Councillor Butler and Councillor Smith there said as well about Rivermead. For Swords, that'll be great, and the Rivermead people are great people down there, and I'm sure they'd welcome this as well. So thanks very much for the motion.
Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks to Councillor Johnson for bringing forward the motion, and I fully support it. I mean, I think the current system of childcare and of early childhood education and care is fundamentally dysfunctional, and it's just not delivering for families and for children. And I think, you know, while the council doesn't have a statutory function in relation to childcare, I think there is an opportunity for the council to act as a persuader and a facilitator in promoting community childcare and not-for-profit childcare, and that's particularly the case where the council has engaged in, you know, in recent years in development, in council-owned development, such as Churchfields in Mulhuddard, where I know Councillor McCamley has had motions previously calling for a community childcare facility to be provided in Churchfields. That you know, developments like that, which are, you know, really high quality developments, provide a good opportunity for community not-for-profit childcare to be delivered in mixed tenure developments on publicly owned land. Our area committee last Thursday considered and passed a motion that I put forward calling for the council to take up the new and to be very active in taking up the new initiative for state-led community childcare, which Councillor Johnson referenced. That's currently very minimalist. I welcome it, but it's a drop in the ocean compared to what's actually needed. But nonetheless, we supported a motion urging that the council would engage actively with that, and I believe that is happening. In fairness, but the current system is dysfunctional. I think this has come up. The level of concern about this is shown by the fact that it's come up in multiple fora. It's come up here, the area committee, the SPC. I think we shouldn't wait for any review by the minister. I think we should pass the motion and give the council, a very clearly defined position on this.
Councillor Patrick Quinlan.
Thank you very much, Chair. Happy to support the motion. Obviously, in principle, happy to support the motion, but there's kind of this broader discussion that's after starting here in the chamber on kind of systemic issues, what the actual overarching issue is in relation to not-for-profit community childcare facilities, and it's my fundamental belief and my party's fundamental belief that this is an issue that stems from central government. Effectively, when you have a situation where to be able to get onto the property ladder, to be even entertained by the banks to get a mortgage, you have to have in excess of 100 grand. It's going to dictate that both parents have to go out and go to work. Then what's happening is that children are being put into care facilities, often against the actual wishes of the parents. I mean, I know plenty of women who would happily stay at home and mind their kids, absolutely no problem at all. I think society as a whole needs to take a different approach to mothers and the role that they provide inside the home. I think it should be put to the absolute top of the most important job in the country, quite literally raising the next generation of Irish children to be good, productive citizens. But that is being totally hindered on purpose, I will add, by design, by this system, by this government, to force children into these facilities, is what I'm going to call them, and basically set situations in motion where both parents are forced to go to work because it's the only economic decision that they can make to try and provide some sort of a future for the family. And it's also dictating the amount of kids that Irish people have, which is why the birth rate is in an absolute collapse and free fall. And just to round it up very quickly as well, the only reason I actually even jumped in on this is that the National Party is currently in the process of producing an Irish Families First policy, and I'd encourage all the members and the public to keep an eye on the website for updates on such. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Brendan Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor.
I won't need that.
So, Brendan Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I want to indicate as supporting the motion, and the manner in which Councillor Johnson has made the case has been very encouraging. I just want to take issue with the last two paragraphs of the response from Mr. Quinlivan, and to agree with Councillor Walsh. I don't think we should wait to see what the Minister's intentions are. I think we should send a strong message here today that the councillors and the Fingal County Council strongly of the view that this should be a way it moves forward, and we should tell her what we feel rather than waiting for that. So we should pass the motion, and if you want to take the motion that has been passed to the SPC, so be it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thank you, and I'd like to support the motion. I'd also like to come in on something that was said there, and just to clarify that children, if they're very lucky, have mummies and daddies, and it is certainly not a woman's place to stay at home and mind their children unless they choose to do so. I think that it would be great to have a society where both parents didn't have to work, but that means that daddies can also choose to stay at home and be the primary caregivers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's all the speakers I have. Just say a few words on the motion and maybe get a bit of clarity as well. So the motion reads, and then it gets to be provided in all mixed tenure developments. Be provided by who? Be provided in all mixed tenure on publicly owned lands. Who's going to provide the building? Who's going to provide the service? So the service is set up by a volunteer committee, would say a company. That's a community childcare facility. So who's going to provide the building? Are you saying that Fingal County Council, it's not clear, are going to provide the building? Can I ask a question on Donabate? So Fingal County Council developed or are developing out an estate in Donabate, and childcare facility was in that. It's our responsibility to deliver it as we are the developer. What's happened with that and who's going to run it, or where is that at? Does anyone have any information on that? The state have announced, as John Walsh has said there, that they're going to purchase or renovate eight buildings for state-led childcare. 8 buildings, so by 100 places. And that is not a lot, but it's a start in 2026. What's my view? My view is the situation is a mess. My view is that the state should build the buildings. My view is that the buildings should be rented to the private sector. And my view is the building should be made available to the community-led sector at no rent. And that's the way it should, like a school system. And a company should be set up to do that. A separate building, Ireland, government, company. That's my view. And I've put that to ministers that have written it in, not today or yesterday, a year or two ago. So it's in there. But so they're kind of moving in that direction, but nibbling at it 8 by 100 is not going to do a lot. It's a good start. So I'm not clear about this. So we develop out Mulhullert, that was mentioned, we develop out Ballymastone, or we develop out a small site that needs 75 childcare spaces per the planning regulations. Does that mean a private childcare operator cannot go in there? It has to be, this is only in public land, has to be a community-led childcare facility. I'm just a bit at sea on that one, and I'm trying to support the motion. So, yeah, that's it. And in Skerries, we're getting, it's either no buses or there's 3 coming at the one time. So we're getting 2 new big childcare facilities there. And we do have a childcare facility in the local community centre. And I do remember one time Malachy had noted the very good community-led childcare facility has been for years there in Balbriggan in the cottage there, gone back many years. And it's a great facility. So we're trying to support the motion, very low, 5%, 25% is the aim. And just one more piece, in Dungarvan there's a childcare facility, it's community-led, there's about 100 spaces and they take everyone. Don't ask me how to do it, public and private. Anyway, that's it. So are we going, do you want to hear from John? Someone, Angela? Angela, and then we go for a response from John or whoever, and then back to you, Karina. Angela.
Thanks a lot. I just want to clarify. I was a bit of rush of blood to the head there at that time when I was speaking. What I really meant to say was that childcare isn't gender-based, so there are families with 2 mammies and 2 daddies, and I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
It's grand, thank you. So we go to John Quinlivan.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, members. I suppose to start with, just to clarify the council's role, I mean, our main involvement in childcare provision comes through the planning system and the provision of buildings and standards through that system. Childcares are required under planning on both private and public lands, so there is no difference in terms of the planning. But the planning does not cover the operating model for how those facilities, once developed, are actually operated. We do engage with agencies and the other stakeholders through the County Childcare Committee and the LCDC, where we aim to support the provision of the infrastructure and the services in whatever way we can, recognising that we are not directly involved in that childcare provision, other than the manner I've described. There is a national childcare strategy, there is a funding model, and there is a structure that's channeled through the Department of Children and the County Childcare Committees. Now, members have expressed their views about how that model is functional or not, but it is the model that exists, and it's not for us within the council to certainly on the executive side to push into a different direction. We are not involved directly in the provision of services, but the council's community centres are, and Councillor Quinn mentioned a number of 494 children that are in the community centres receiving childcare from the private sector, but there's 800 children altogether through the community centres receiving childcare. So there is nearly the same number again through the voluntary, the not-for-profit model. The community centres operate a variety of models, and generally their approach is to go out to tender to look for the services that the parents in the area require. And the not-for-profit sector does not always come back with proposals in those tender processes to address the needs of the parents and the services that are sought.
And in those circumstances, the other model is followed. And that is just a fact of the models that are out there. It is a fact of the sustainability of the not-for-profit model. And the members have, expressed their own opinions around the sustainability of the entire sector. But that has been the experience of the community centres. They're simply, they prioritise looking for a service model that the parents in the area are looking for, and that's the route that they go. There is a change happening in the sector for many of the reasons that the members have expressed their views on. And we have recently met with the Department of Children, who are now looking to identify sites. We're trying to get to an understanding of how they are actually going to make the assessment of how they select those sites. And we will be having further engagement with them, and we have mentioned many different parts of the county where there are opportunities for them to get involved, whether it's through capital investment of the acquisition of existing, the building of new, the extension of existing, and all of those different options they are open to, and we had a very positive meeting with them, and we will be having further meetings. Look, there's no question that there are challenges for the county in the numbers and the figures that the members have mentioned. Councillor Johnson's mentioned the 5% figure. There's no question there is a significant legacy issue there from 20 odd years of the existence of the childcare committees and that childcare strategy, and it is something that needs to be addressed. But it's really important for members to remember that this is an interagency issue. This is not an issue that is the primary responsibility of Fingal County Council. There are funding mechanisms out there. They are not channeled through the local authority, and while members might be right in thinking that there should be, whether it's a free rent or a peppercorn rent or whatever those things are, anything that the council does at the moment would be from council's resources. And it's not for the council to subvent the childcare sector when there is a national model in place. That's why we're engaging with the other partners around the LCDC at the County Childcare Committee. That's why we're engaging with the Department of Children on what is actually possible and how the national model can be brought into Fingal to rectify what is a major legacy issue. It's my understanding of why the members have agreed that the SPC should look at this, and why in terms of what the council can do to facilitate that sector and to facilitate all of that change that's happening, and make sure that Fingal can move to address the legacy issues that are there. But I do absolutely think that the SPC is the appropriate forum for that discussion. It is essential that that discussion takes place on what the council's position should be in this before a motion like this that does commit us to a model which I have to say would be challenging in terms of the experience of the community centres, of the design of a service and restricting it to only not-for-profit when, Councillor Hopkins has already pointed out that the not-for-profit sector in Fingal has fallen by 1% because of the sustainability challenges that it faces. So to pass a motion like this and bind us into a model that might be challenging from a procurement perspective, but certainly challenging from a service design and from a sustainability perspective, I do think it would be premature at this point until that discussion around strategy happens at the SPC, until we get much better clarity from the Department of Children through this further engagement process that we're having. So I would suggest to members that we can certainly take this motion across to the SPC. I know it has been on the agenda before at the SPC, but I was at the SPC a couple of times last year. We had useful discussion, and we are getting to an understanding now of what is going to change in terms of the national strategy, and it'll be a much better informed SPC discussion this time around, and something material can come out of it.
Okay, so go back to Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Look, I'm acutely aware of the process, and in terms of publicly owned land, the process is somewhat different. It's owned by the state, the taxpayer. And I suppose there are creches provided for, built by the developer, who then sells it on and goes out and looks for a provider. So I can't see why, you know, this is publicly owned land, in fact, council owned land, that we can't look at prioritising the provision of not-for-profit on these particular sites. I think it's really important. Like, what I'm concerned about really is this could be a missed opportunity for this council, because in the correspondence I received from the Minister, she's quite clear in that they're looking at delivering these facilities by the end of this year, early next year. So our 5% could become 4%. So I mean, we need to act. I really believe it's a missed opportunity. And just to point out, Mayor, that the motion is actually recommending. I'm well aware the council, you know, have a role in recommending and facilitating. I'm well aware of the council. I'm not asking the council to build a creche, fund it, and to provide, you know, a service. What I'm asking is for the council to facilitate and to recommend and prioritise, in the first instance, publicly owned land. This is a land owned by the taxpayer, by everybody sitting here and outside this room, everybody watching here tonight. This, you know, so it's important, you know, we've social and affordable homes, mixed tenure developments all across the county, and we should be proactively trying to ensure that we have these facilities for those people. We're building new communities. We do so many good things in this council, but this is something that we need to be prioritising to ensure that all these new communities that we are developing all across the county have proper facilities. It's not on that we have people, young people moving into homes, they can't afford childcare, they have to go to Swords or further field to avail of childcare. That's just not acceptable. So look, I mean, I really believe at this point that we should really, you know, I want this motion, if we have to put it to a vote, we put it to a vote, but I really think now, I just don't think time is on our side, to be quite honest with you. I am concerned, and I get your whole point about, you know, the SPC, but I am concerned that time isn't on our side. We know now, like this has been mentioned by many people way before I'm here, and I think that we have to act now as a council, because we're building a lot of homes all across the county, and we have to ensure we have the proper facilities and services there for these people. Thank you.
Okay, John Quinnivan.
Mayor, yeah, just to come back in, thanks, Councillor, for just clarifying the piece around recommends, and that you're not attempting to bind us in something immediately here. I had read that motion as an attempt to do that, so thanks for the clarification. In light of the clarification, I don't have a problem with this motion passing. I will say, you know, we have no intention to park this into a discussion with the SPC, and that only when we come out the other side of that will we be taking any action. We will be moving in parallel. I've already said we already had a really positive meeting with the Department of Children, and we will continue with that engagement. So these things can happen in parallel, and I'm happy to commit to you that it will happen in parallel. So in light of the clarification around not binding us into this model, I'm happy for members to pass.
Okay, so is the motion agreed? Agreed. Okay, move on to the next motion, which is a similar topic, not the exact same, but similar. Councillor Mark Boland, creche or childcare facility delivery. And if you could move the first motion, and we have an amendment here before. So can you move the first motion, the motion as we have it here? So proposed by Councillor Mark Boland, seconded by John Walsh. And now what do I do? What do I do with an amendment?
The amendment's going to be shown on screen.
It's on,
Need
yeah.
to propose and second the amendment.
Right. So there's the amendment up on screen. And then I need to get a proposer and seconder for the amendment. So proposed by Councillor Mark Boland, seconded by Councillor John Walsh. So now, I suppose I'll go to Mark Boland. You speak to the motion and maybe explain what difference the amendment makes. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mayor. It's obviously very clear this evening that childcare is a very important topic here in the Chamber, and I suppose what distinguishes this motion from the previous motion Ms. Johnson brought forward is this is looking at planning. So this is to get this built before even an operator is in there. And I wanted to bring this motion forward because it's a natural next step following our discussion at the January council meeting, where my motion was passed by councillors that ensured greater planning was ensured for the provision of childcare facilities in Part 8 housing developments. So at that meeting, it was clear that a positive and robust conversation had taken place on childcare. My colleagues supported the amended version of my motion, which was agreed, and which confirmed where a creche or childcare facility is proposed in Part 8 development, it should be a condition of planning that the developer must ensure the facility is operational and an operator is secured. I welcomed that outcome because it sent a very clear message to everybody that childcare is not an optional extra. It is essential infrastructure that we need to bring forward in all our developments. So what I'm bringing forward here today is a motion where it is included in the private developments, as the previous one was just for Part 8 developments. The changing of the words that I've put up there is that the creche is fully delivered and available for an operator. Parents are still trying to get to work. Early year educators are still trying to provide service. Communities are still left struggling when promised childcare facilities are delayed, they're left vacant, or they're dropped altogether. And we have all, as councillors, seen this happen. And what I want to do is close that loop. We need stronger planning laws to prevent this happening in the future. So we need to put in conditions as I've laid out. If a creche or a childcare facility is proposed or required as part of private residential development, it should be deliverable. It should be available, and we should have it ready for an operator. So not at some vague point in the future, but it needs to be delivered alongside the houses, and it needs to be delivered in tandem. I want to acknowledge that the Executive have worked and engaged constructively on this issue to date. This motion is intended to support that work by providing a clear policy direction that can be applied consistently across developments, rather than dealing with these issues on a case-by-case basis or after problems arise because a creche was never built. Ultimately, this is about learning from what hasn't worked in the past and doing better going forward. Too many times, as I've said, we have all seen creches that have not been built, and we need to stop this practice. So I'm asking my colleagues to support this motion so that we can send a strong, consistent message. Childcare facilities are needed, they're wanted, and they have to be part of all future developments. Gurumila Margaret.
Okay, I have two speakers here. So a few more now. Councillor Joe Newman.
Thanks, Mary. I wanted to support the motion, and it's an issue that I chased down a number of years ago up in the Miller Glens area when we had creches designated sites, and the development was nearly finished before, and probably quite 3 or 4 of them probably haven't even been developed. They're left there at the moment, are just green space. And I did raise concerns a couple of years back about it. I chased it down and I got as much information as I could. I highlighted the issues about the creches in that area, and I did say at the time it was like a marketing strategy for the developer to sell houses, that he had a site set aside for a creche, which that never materialised, and that's the case that Councillor Boland is making there. And I think presently there's still a development up there near the school, near the centre. There's a site there where there's a creche supposed to go as well, and maybe some retail units. So I'll be actively watching that over the next week or two, or checking out to make sure that that creche is delivered. Or if it's not, that there has to be a very good reason as to why that is not the case. But certainly, when maybe things change throughout the development of those housing developments, that might say, well, that small site for creche is not really workable. Maybe we need to look at other options, and I can understand that. But it is very important that we keep an eye on it, make sure developments are not just putting in, sites for the sake of the optics of it, and they're not following through. Or if they're not following through, something substantial has to be put in place. Thanks.
Councillor John Walsh. First
Yeah, thanks. Thanks to Councillor Boland for putting forward the motion. I strongly support it, and we've all seen situations, as Councillor Newman said, where the planning was given for a childcare facility, for a creche, and that never materialised. There's already a very significant loophole in the legislation, in which it's not necessary. It's only necessary to provide a childcare facility or creche for a development of 75 units or more. But really what this motion is intended to do is provide a strong policy basis for effective planning enforcement. And I certainly have direct experience in my own area of creches that have never been provided. That in one new estate built in Carpenterstown in the last 5 years, planning was given for a creche. The creche never materialised, and eventually a change of use was granted to residential. Effectively the essential infrastructure the council had judged to be essential initially in a planning application never happened. And this is about community-led planning. It's about ensuring that developers can't do whatever they like, that the needs of communities in terms of infrastructure are delivered in terms of essential community infrastructure, and that certainly includes childcare.
Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to support the motion. I could easily give you 3 examples of housing estates within kind of a 10-minute radius in Malahide. One built 20 years ago. I believe the creche that was left empty for 20 years has just been given a change of use to residential. So we're rewarding developers for not meeting their obligations under the conditions already set out. Another one in New Park in Concealy, the creche was built too small for it to be profitable by a private operator, so I don't understand how we're giving out planning permission for premises that are too small. And another one we found out about in Malahide at last week's area committee, Greenwood, I think, where the developer is now saying the creche that he was conditioned, he does not, he's trying to change that as well. So it seems to me we already have the conditions, but then if the developer changes their mind or doesn't suit them or they can't get anyone to take the space, then we reward them by giving them the change of use eventually. So I absolutely support this, and I hope that we can enforce it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Tony Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. And again, I want to support the motion. I think this is a very strongly worded motion and will have good impact. It probably reminds me of some of the statements we'd have on the development plan and how we progress those issues that are impacting. Just a technical question with regard to where a creche or childcare facility is proposed or required as part of the permission. Can you just let us know what the number is within a development where a childcare or creche facility is required? I'm just not certain on that one. Thanks very much.
Okay, Councillor Kieran Dennison.
Thank you, Mayor. And I certainly support the sentiment of the motion. I'm just not sure how it would work in practice, because while it would be a condition of planning and would be available for an operator, we're all familiar with estates that can take 10 years before they're finished, so to speak, and handed over to the council. So I could foresee a building not fitted out but built and available, but left standing there. So I'm just not sure how it might work. I think one thing that might be useful, as well as making it a condition of planning, is that the site would be zoned for community infrastructure, and therefore it couldn't be used then for residential use, and would have to be made available for, if no operator was available, then would be used for other community use. So happy to hear what the manager has to say on this.
Councillor Dean Mulligan.
Thanks, Chair. I think condition is a good idea, although we've faced issues in the past where conditions were laid, even though it's legislation, anything over 70 units, which equates to 71 units, does require childcare facilities. There's a myriad of examples of development in Sword and surrounding areas where creches don't exist, and we've gone through 3 or 4 phases, and we're dealing with the crisis across the county and country of inadequate childcare provision for families and children, and in some cases people applying for childcare facilities before they even give birth in order to avail of childcare for when their maternity leave evidently ends, which is mind-boggling considering how difficult it is a situation and how stressful that process is for any individual or family. But that said, we've been held for ransom in Swords. I'll give an example of where we had families who were due to draw down, and the condition was before phase 3 of a development the creche had to be in, and these families had signed the contract. Everything was signed, sealed and delivered. The creche wasn't viable, it wasn't ready, but these families were either going to remortgage their house or lose it unless that condition was redacted or changed. And we were held for ransom as councillors to say to the council, we need to give leeway here, and the developer was able to walk away scot-free and not provide the facility. And by doing that, they put us against the wall, and it was completely wrong. But developers have a funny way of making these conditions in such a way that they make us the problem because they can't facilitate it, and therefore people can't be housed when contracts are agreed. So I fully support the motion, but we have to have an understanding that there's ways and means to omit these things and get around them and put us against the wall, as we've seen in a myriad of occasions, and just not build them and leave them derelict. But I do support the motion and the conversation wider. Thank you.
Okay, so that's all the speakers. So I won't say a few words again. So yes, in general, I'd like to support the motion 100%, but the devil's in the detail as usual, and I most likely will vote for the motion. But we can't. Why are creches not being built? They're not viable. Why are they not viable? They're too small. That's an issue. So are we going to force the building of too small creches that are not going to be viable and going to continue? In some places we don't even have the building. We've got the site, going to continue and be left empty. So that's just something that needs to be worked out later. But we'll say it that way. I think 75 homes is 20 childcare spaces. I've been trying to Google and find out what's the minimum. It's not very clear. 50 might be the kind of minimum viability. And the commercial providers like 100 childcare spaces. That's what's coming to Skerries, 100, 150. Big buildings, 350 metres squared. So as we roll into we have our rules and regulations in the development plan, 75 and plus, you need a childcare building, but nobody's going to use it. Who's going to use it if it's too small? I don't know how we get around that, but I'm in favour of the motion and its intent, but I still think, and Dean Mulligan's after raising an interesting case there, so I don't know how it's all going to work out. Then my only other idea is that, and it wouldn't fix anything, is cede the site to the council. Anyway, okay, I'm in favour of the motion. We'll go back to who's taking this, or what are we doing now? Roisin.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members. I suppose just to deal with a few particular queries around it, the Section 28 guidelines, which we are obliged to comply with, outline a minimum requirement of a childcare facility per 75 homes, and that childcare facility must have a minimum of 20 spaces. So that's what we operate within. Any application for 75 or more homes has to provide a childcare facility, and that's the assessment we make. Councillor Dennison, just in relation to your query around rezoning, what we usually do in the development plan, and a lot of you will be familiar with it, we have large areas where new residential communities are going to be zoned as RA, which is residential area, and as that area is developed out, we then amend the zoning to RS, residential CI community. But at the initial drafting of the development plan, the exact location of facilities such as creches is unclear, and it has a broader zoning, and it would be quite difficult to be bringing forward a variation as and when an application for a creche came in order to achieve that. But it is something we do look at when we do review the development plan. The provision of childcare facilities in larger residential developments is usually secured around conditions around phasing for the construction and completion of the creche or childcare facility when a certain number of units are built. The inclusion of the additional text from the amended motion is fine, and I'm happy that we will review the wording of our condition to include the "and available for an operator" within those conditions moving forward.
Okay, I think we might. No, hold on a minute. I'm getting advice here that maybe one of the we may need another amendment. Just one word up there that may be difficult to deal with. I don't know if we have you. Yeah, so I think an amendment is coming. There's just difficulty with one word there relating to where Chief Executive resolves. The resolve word is causing difficulty. So recommends or ensures. Chief Executive recommends or ensures. Yeah. Okay, ensures. Grant.
We're not going to get on that.
All right, the word ensures has to be put in instead of resolves. Okay, so that is before us now. So is that agreed? Agreed. Agreed. Everyone okay? And agreed. Okay, motion agreed. Councillor Ellen Troy, you're up. Councillor Ellen Troy, dangerous vehicles in this council's parks and open spaces, proposed by Councillor Troy and seconded by Councillor Sheehan.
So bringing this motion to the Council today, I'd like to firstly express a sadness to the family of the young teenager who lost her life due to being hit by a scrambler in Finglas. And the reason I bring this motion is to try every way I can to protect the lives of our Fingal County Council park users. So Padder to Bean recently, TD, has called on Minister for Justice to ensure that all Gardaí are given the training and the right to pursue those riding scramblers and electric scooters. We welcome the legislation to ban scramblers. However, the ban without enforcement will not save lives. Incredibly, Gardaí are currently not trained to pursue a person on a scrambler or an electric scooter. As a result, there's no legal protection for them if they do pursue. They could be stood down from their job, they can be subject to a civil court case, they could be subject of a FOSRA investigation. As a result, Gardaí are not going to pursue anyone on a scrambler. A scrambler rider with a scarf or a balaclava can whiz past a Gardaí, refuse to stop, and nothing will happen. The law is tilted in favour of the criminal. The Gardaí are subject to potential discipline and costs. The law will not be enforced in many situations. We will have more of the scramblers in the months to come because of this, and not less. So I ask you to support this motion to try to eliminate the vehicles from our parks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gerard Sheehan.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks, Councillor Troy, for raising the issue again. I don't think we can raise it enough, obviously, with that particular incident, but there are more, and we're all so aware of them, as are, of course, the Council. And we do, of course, thank the government for bringing in the legislation, the recent legislation banning the use of scramblers. But I think what's being asked for here is the signage, and to make it as plain and simple as can be. If it's in writing or in a little picture, they're banned. They're not allowed. You can't use them. Of course, we have to look and keep looking at different measures, and I can see again the restrictions placed on the council, especially with access to parks for mothers with pushchairs and wheelchair users, etc. So it is a difficult one, but I welcome the proposals here. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Darren Jack Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Troy for bringing this forward. I welcome it very much. You know, we suffer a lot of this around the community, and especially around Swords as well, up in our big parks around the area. What I'd like to say, though, is that maybe it's an idea that the government get out to schools and educate young kids in schools, in national schools, especially young boys, to educate them not to go down that route of scramblers, because the horse is already bolted in this regard. I know we want to preventions and stuff like that, but we do need to sort of educate the young people now to prevent them from using bikes going forward. Scramblers, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks to Councillor Troy for bringing forward the motion. I think obviously I think we'd all agree with the sentiment of it very strongly. I mean, obviously there was we're all very aware of the tragic death of Grace Lynch in a scrambler, an incident with a scrambler, and more recently, in fact, there was an incident in Dublin 15 where a member of An Garda Síochána was injured in attempting to seize a to make an arrest of an individual on a scrambler. Thankfully, not seriously injured, but just shows the dangers of the misuse and illegal use of scramblers. I very much welcome the ban, the ban that the government will bring forward on scramblers in public places. I would agree, though, that enforcement is crucial, and I think I actually think the reply or the response to the motion is very comprehensive. I suppose this isn't just a matter for the council, it's also a case for enforcement at a national level, and our local community safety partnership at its first meeting there last week agreed to make a submission to the Minister seeking a system of national registration for scrambler bikes, so that all owners or all those who purchase scramblers would have to register them. They wouldn't be legal under any circumstances unless they were registered, and this would allow the guards to track and identify scramblers and seize them more easily. I suppose pursuing or chasing scramblers in itself I don't think is a long-term solution. The guards need to be able to have the powers to identify them and to seize them, track them and seize them. Would support the sentiment of the motion, but I think the national level enforcement, much stronger national enforcement is needed as well.
Okay. Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thank you, and thanks Councillor Troy for bringing forward this motion. And I agree with a lot of what Councillor Walsh said there, and it is something that we have discussed. We've had a huge amount of discussion about this at our local area meetings. And just to give you an example, Harstown Park has signage about scrambler use and scooter use. And I suppose the people who are tearing around our parks, the signage just doesn't deter them. I suppose every little bit helps, but signage doesn't deter them. And we've spoken about K-barriers versus kissing gates. We've had meetings with the guards in the park. A lot of the new electric bikes are really light. They can be lifted over the kissing gates. They can get through the K-barriers. We've put K-barriers in certain places to try and slow them down as they come out of the park into residential areas. But really, I think we do need to take this issue really seriously. Our government needs to take it seriously nationally, and I think until we start requiring registration of these vehicles, I don't think we're really going to go very far. Chasing them just isn't an option. The guards have drones, but they are waiting for clarification on how to use them in terms of, I suppose, when the cases get to court, legislative clarification. So it is a big issue, and it's always worth discussing it. And particularly after Grace lost her life a couple of months ago, but we just need to go a lot further than this. Thank you.
Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Yeah, Grace lost her, well, she didn't lose her life. Her life was taken from her. And I don't know how her family are dealing with the grief. It's absolutely horrendous. And on top of saddening me, it really angers me that we just kind of sit back and go, oh, well, there's 10 lads in one town going around in scramblers, and the whole weight of the state can't do something about that. I mean, it's absolutely pathetic, to be perfectly honest. I'm sure if you had good community policing and you knocked on people's doors, the vast majority of people in communities where scramblers are being used know exactly who the people are, could say it's whoever in number 9 or whatever, and the guards could go. They're not on their scramblers every day. I was listening to a thing about it on the radio. It's 100% boys. They're between 18 and 25, or 16 and 25 rather, and they're out on Sundays for their jollies mainly, and so their scramblers are in their front gardens, their back gardens, their sheds, wherever they have them. So if we had some decent community policing investigation, the guards could go and keep taking them off them until they do not exist anymore. It's as simple as that. I mean, I'm happy to support where we put up signs, whatever. These young fellas don't care about signs. They can get them over kissing gates, and anyone who knows me have heard me speak about how our parks are so important for people to have access to, people in wheelchairs, people with double buggies, people with cargo bikes. So we can't be prohibiting law-abiding citizens from using and enjoying our parks. And in any event, these lads are going around the road, they're going around footpaths, wherever they like. So this really is, to my mind, a Garda issue. And if we can't solve this, then I'm not sure we can solve anything. Thank you.
Councillor Breda Hannafy.
Thank you, and I'd like to support the motion. But as Councillor Donnelly was saying, there is signage in the parks around the area, but as the others said, these lads don't care about signs, and the way to go is with the Gardaí. And as Paul Donnelly TD brought up, that we have a dedicated anti-scrambler unit to directly challenge these people who recklessly drive scramblers on the paths and on the roads and spaces. They have, a couple of months ago, the guards confirmed that they have drones. Gardaí are trained to use the drones, but they're still not operational. There's so many things that the Garda management can do to tackle this, but it's not the politically will to challenge it, and I think it has to go back to government again, come back into the hands of the Gardaí to address this. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jean Mulligan.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Troy, for bringing this forward. Yeah, it's a shame that on Garda Síochána have 3 levels of driving provisions that they're allowed use, and 3 levels of status of driving in Ireland, from what I'm told. And one of them is not to pursue, not just scramblers, but pursue anyone. If they're pursuing any vehicle in any way, they're putting themselves at risk and at potentially internal investigations as a result of whatever the consequences are of any road traffic dangers that pursue on the back of any person being pursued by Garda Síochána, unlike the UK and other European countries which have legislation and driving instruction which allows for such a thing, which makes a Gardaí enforcement near impossible. What makes it really impossible in this regard is that the regulations brought forward in 2003, in July of 2003, were never put forward by the Minister for Transport, were never actually acted upon. So a Freedom of Information request showed that for the last 2.5 years, Gardaí have been pleading with the Department of Transport to introduce the regulations to officially ban scrambler use and actually look at the regulations that were brought to the department at that time. So it's actually been on the Department of Transport desk for the last 2.5 years, the regulations to actually ban this and put the infrastructure and regulations in place. And they came out this morning or on radios, listened on News Talk, and acknowledged the regulations have been in place. Now that Grace's Law is being pursued, it's back on the fore, which it's tragic that it took this to bring it to the fore, but it is like 2.5 years ago. It's only when tragedies happen that we act, and we can't let that happen. And hopefully motions like this will help support regulations down the line. Thank you.
Councillor Joe Newman.
Thanks, Mayor. I support the motion, and certainly from a scrambler point of view, they need to be kept out of parks. Anybody that owns them, take them out and crush them up, but you need to follow through with a fine or whatever other penalty you can put on people. You know, there's probably a case here, as drones were mentioned there a minute ago, for, you know, instead of chasing after, you know, on a police car or on a motorbike, that we can use drones, you know, and use CCTV, and that would be a solution in that regard. You know, I mean, you'd be able to follow the people that are causing the problems. I have to say, from our area point of view, we were kind of founded a good number of years ago with scramblers. They seem to have quietened down for some reason, I'm not too sure why. But our park is open, it's not closed. When I say our park, I mean the regional park in Swords, from a local area point of view. And there's no way we can really put up kitchen gates and stop them. We're trying to open up kitchen gates so that people in wheelchairs can gain access. I've been away on a couple of cycle study tours, and the first one I went to was Copenhagen. I was too late to get an ordinary bike, and I got an electric bike, thank God, because it was fairly arduous sort of study. But you know, and I've cycled through many a park over there, and it's accepted. There are active travel ways for people to get from A to B, and we're putting a bridge across, talking of putting a bridge across the Broad Meadow for people to be able to cycle across from one area to the other. So people will be cycling, whatever about an electric bike. That has to be catered for, and so I'm sure Mr. Story might be able to elaborate on that. But you know, people walking pedestrians are the most vulnerable, and they should be given the care first and foremost. But I can see that, you know, in trying to cut down on car journeys, and you'll find that we have more electric bikes, the ones that you have to pedal to, you know, get some momentum, and you're not just flying at 40 or 60 kilometres an hour. So I support the motion, but I think there are other things coming that we have to consider as well, how we're going to address them. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Malachy Quinn.
Support the motion also. I had a motion at local area which is quite similar to this, which was passed in regards to signage. Signage only goes so far. On Saturday afternoon, I met with the local community guards in Balbriggan about policing issues in the town, and they had highlighted the fact that one of the solutions maybe to assist them and help them would be exactly what Councillor Mulligan has said, the regulations to be brought into law, and in regards to the local communities also supporting the community guards in reporting individuals, because they are the eyes and the ears on the ground. If they can report them to the community police can intervene. Also speaking to a guard that's based in Ballymun a few weeks ago, a new superintendent moved in, a new inspector had moved into Ballymun Garda Station, and if you can remember, most recently the swoop on scramblers and e-scooters in Ballymun was led by this particular inspector. He identified an issue and he acted upon it, and he was supported in that by senior Garda management, and I think that is a microcosm of what needs to happen in our Garda stations. So I want to commend Ballymun Garda Station for doing that. We've spoken with Balbriggan Garda Station in regards to this, and they're looking for support from central government, and they're looking for support from the local community. So I think we all have a part to play in this, some parts much larger than others. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brian McDonough.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the issue is of scramblers in spaces is a really serious one, and something we should do everything to try and stop. But the you know, within our parks and within our open spaces, we've got vastly different types and different areas. We've lots of open spaces that have no barriers of any sort, and we're very happy with them. You know, the ordinary local green in front of a house, you know, it doesn't have any barriers, and I don't think we would want to be putting barriers in those kind of open spaces. And again, in most parks, we're very much into active travel and very much in terms of cycling and walking, and unfortunately you can't distinguish between sometimes in relation to a physical barrier between my cargo bike and a scrambler, or an ordinary child's bike, or somebody who's just cycling for recreation. Now, that doesn't mean that those bikes should have access everywhere within a park. You know, you wouldn't expect them to be flying around a playground or anywhere else like that. So I'd say the interpretation of this motion is, without sort of saying, oh, we need to take out the physical barrier bit, is adequate, would also kind of entail appropriate, and that we don't overinterpret the motion to say that what we're trying to do is to block every park or from all bikes. and that we go on a case-by-case basis, and I'm sure that's not what Councillor Troy. So on that kind of a assumption that we're going to have a common sense interpretation of what we mean by adequate, and I'm happy not to oppose the motion. There you go.
Okay, that's all the speakers. There is an issue for sure. Just to put a different side to it, I was approached a couple of years ago, but this will be a different matter now, for scramblers, an off-road location for a scrambling club. So this wouldn't apply to this, but there's a tradition of the Skerries 100 and motorbikes out my way, and there was a club who wanted an off-road location, not to be used in parks, and to find a place to try and let them, you know, do their scrambling, which wouldn't affect anyone, but that didn't go anywhere. That's another side to the matter. I'm inclined to support the motion, but we go over now to management to reply to this. I see there's some good things in the reply to the motion. So,
thanks very much, Mayor. Members, I welcome this motion, and I'm absolutely and fully in agreement with you. We have they are banned under the bylaws in the open spaces, and I welcome the regulations with regards to the total ban on scramblers in public places. And we await the regulations which will strengthen the enforcement powers of An Garda Síochána, and I can assure you Fingal County Council will work with An Garda Síochána on that. We do have patrols in all of the parks. We have the park rangers who are in and out of the park during the day. They will advise people that, you know, if they are on a scramble or e-scooter, it's banned, and, you know, to leave the park. But sometimes it's very, very difficult to deal with this because they're going so fast. There might be groups of them, etc. So for me, for the scramblers in particular, registration is key, and I have to ask, nobody should be selling scramblers because they're not allowed on public roads, they're not allowed in public parks or open spaces, and the only place they're allowed is on private land. So total ban is absolutely welcomed, and we'll continue to do what we can to stop them coming into the parks. However, I certainly don't want to see any restrictions that would impact on the good people who are using the park, people who have disability, who have kids and buggies and that. So I would welcome the regulations on what's coming down the line, and work together to try and stop it. But we'll certainly do everything that we can. Thanks.
I'll go back to Councillor Troy, and then I'm going to ask, is the motion agreed? So Councillor Troy.
For everybody's input, I just have one little question. Has every enclosed park got signs outside of it saying that scramblers are prohibited?
All of the bylaws are displayed and advertised in all of the parks. If there's any park that doesn't have it, please let us know and we'll put it in. The signage is there to deter. Unfortunately, it doesn't.
I know.
Doesn't deter all of the time. So if there's any particular park that it's not, maybe there's some of the smaller little parks there mightn't be, but we'll certainly get it up. But they're not using the small parks; they're using the big parks. They need space, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I just thought maybe if the local Gardaí's number was on it, so that people, when they saw scramblers, they could report it. Kind of been invited to report it, so that we could keep a record of which parks were the worst. You know, I'm just terrified somebody else is going to be killed, like children rolling around in grass, and even beside me there's big gouges out of the grass from them flying across it. So just long grass and kids, and just frightening.
Okay, so thanks. Is the motion agreed? Motion agreed? Yeah. So Councillor John Walsh, compulsory sale of derelict properties, proposed by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Mary McCamley.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So this is I suppose this is a motion relating to derelict sites and the possibility of using compulsory sale orders. There's very well established powers that local councils have in terms of placing a site on the derelict sites register and where there is non-engagement or non-cooperation seeking to use compulsory purchase orders. And compulsory purchase orders have an important place, but they are quite rarely used. So I was just doing some research for this motion, And in December and January last year, only one compulsory purchase order was implemented across the country. Now there were 7 last month, which is a slight upward trend. The idea behind compulsory sale orders is to give an additional policy instrument to government and local councils in dealing with derelict sites. Compulsory sale orders were proposed by Social Justice Ireland in submissions in 2022 and 2023, also by the Scottish Land Commission in 2018. And the idea behind them is that where where a site has been placed in the derelict sites register, where there's non-engagement, using similar conditions to a CPO, it would be possible for a local council to require the sale of the derelict site, and that would be done at open auction to the highest bidder. Actually, a question was asked to the minister. The minister responded to a parliamentary question, actually from a Fine Gael deputy, a couple of months ago, where he said the government had no plans to bring forward legislation for compulsory site orders, and he said that a strong policy basis would be required, and it would have to be looked at in relation to constitutionality. I'd suggest that there is a strong policy basis here. We're dealing with an extraordinary housing crisis. We're dealing with a very high number of derelict sites. Figures from the CSO indicated that there were 20,780 derelict sites throughout the country at the beginning of 2024. There's no sign there's been any significant reduction in that. And CPOs have not been effective generally in reducing the number of derelict sites. The other advantage of compulsory sale orders is that they're more cost effective for the taxpayer. They don't require the actual purchase of the site. They simply require an order requiring the sale of the derelict site. And it may seem a little bit harsh in that the individual selling the site might not get a great price if it's derelict, but that's what they call bad karma. If the site is, there's a certain justice to that. If someone hasn't maintained their site, then it obviously affects the value. So the council, there is no power to do this at the moment. There's no legislative basis to do it. So this is simply asking that the council would request the minister to look at this and provide a legal basis for compulsory sale orders. Thanks very much.
Okay, and can we extend the meeting just to finish this item? Won't take long, I imagine. And I have no other speakers here, and if there's no other speakers, I'm going to John Quinlivan.
No issue with the motion, Mayor. The report speaks for itself.
Is the motion agreed? Agreed. So that's the end of. Well, we'll go on to the next one. I don't know, Dara, if you want to run it. We've only got 3 minutes. Right. Okay. 38. Councillor Dara Butler, Fingal Super Sports Hall, proposed by Councillor Butler, seconded by Owen O'Brien.
Yeah, thanks. I'll be very quick. Yeah, I might be a bit of confusion what I was looking for here. I wasn't looking for the whole complex, but the building itself up there, the hall itself, it's a fantastic facility. I know a few years ago when I was mayor, and just after that, we used to have the power chair thing, and we used to have to go up to Gormanstown to host it because we didn't have a facility in Fingal. Just being up there again for a recent GAA event, and you could see a hall, like there was literally thousands of kids going in and out of this place throughout the day for a GAA event, where the room itself, multi-purpose with the curtains down it. I think you had 6 or 8 different divisions within this hall, so you had all the kids doing their indoor hurling championship, all on boys and girls, all in different leagues, different games. 6 to 8 games going on at the same time. It's just a fantastic facility. It's no more than a big warehouse. And it's just when you see somewhere like that, if anyone has been up there, I suggest you go up and have a look at it. It's the kind of, when we look at all, like as I keep saying here, the local basketball clubs spending close to 100 grand a year having to rent facilities that ultimately the parents, the members end up having to pay. A facility like this, it's a massive sports hall as such. You could have 6 to 8 basketball games going on at the same time here, and again, it's I know we look at the expense of things. It's nothing but a big concrete shell of a hall. People talk about using old warehouses for things like this. It's just something, if people haven't been up to it, I'd urge you to go up and have a look at it. And if the opportunity arises for a building in Fingal that can be converted, go for it. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go to the Is Dave? Dave, you have a minute.
Yeah, I understand. Obviously, the motion is Fingal have decided obviously to go down the hub model. Okay, so we've put in a lot of investment in our sports hubs that deals with a lot of the all-weather issues. This hasn't been considered in the context of any capital plan that's there. So look, we've given what I've arranged for in the reply through the other directorates is what we're actually doing in relation to the sports hubs, the community centres, and obviously the sports audit. But it's not in any current plan that the council have and not included in the capital plan.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Butler, what do you want to do with the motion? Is the motion agreed?
I'll accept the report, but just if anyone...
Okay.
Well, okay, I'll agree. If anyone at the top table gets a chance to go up in the Gorman Centre, you haven't been, have a look at it. I think it's as I said, a big concrete hall. It would,
Right.
it would
We need
serve
clarity.
multiple purposes. Yeah, if we can agree the motion, great. Thank you.
Is the motion agreed? Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.